The Wii is well remembered as one of, if not Nintendo's best console. Full of so many unique features, gimmicks, and just overall charm that make it unforgettable to people who grew up with it or just had it at one point. But alongside all these cool features and gimmicks, the Wii also had one of the greatest libraries of any gaming system. And in this video, we're going to take a look back at some of the best and see what made them so great. So, without further ado, my name is Mariomikester, and let's talk about some Wii games. Released on April 27, 2008 here in North America, Mario Kart Wii is the 6th entry in the Mario Kart series. Development for this game started shortly after the release of Mario Kart DS in 2005, with the game initially being known internally as Mario Kart X, with the X standing for Extreme due to the introduction of the bikes. However, according to an Iwata-ass interview, the name of Mario Kart X ultimately had to be scrapped due to Super Smash Bros. Brawl's official announcement in 2006, with its Japanese name being Super Smash Bros. X. In the end, I think this was for the best, because the name of Mario Kart X will work a lot better for the 10th installment in the series, and not the 6th. Speaking of the introduction of bikes though, Mario Kart Wii wasn't actually the first Mario Kart game meant to feature them. Producer of Mario Kart Wii, Hideki Kono, had actually been pushing for the introduction of bikes since Double Dash, due to his passion of extreme sports. However, his idea was constantly rejected, due to Nintendo thinking the image of Mario riding a bike was too bizarre. But hey, I guess up to this point, busting it down in Dance Dance Revolution and exploring Bowser's hotels were fine enough for him. Jokes aside though, alongside the introduction of the bikes, the other big gimmick of Mario Kart Wii was its motion controls. Allowing players to actually steer the kart by tilting a sideways Wii remote in the direction you wanted to turn was an idea the team loved, and really wanted to nail down. And to go with the immersive motion controls, the idea of a steering wheel attachment for the Wii remote was proposed, to further the immersion and really drive home the feeling of controlling a kart. Designers working on the wheel attachment tested nearly 30 different possible designs for it, ranging from extremely realistic shapes and weights, mimicking the feel of actual go-kart steering wheels, to more goofy Mario-friendly designs with a variety of colors. Ultimately, the team ended up settling on the simple, lightweight Wii wheel we all know and love today, in order to suit long-term periods of gameplay, with the iconic white color being chosen to match the system's color. Funnily enough, that iconic blue ring around the word Wii in the game's logo actually originated from the Wii wheel's design, with the team adding the blue ring to the back of the wheel to give it a more sleek look. And at E3 2007, the game was finally revealed to the public, sporting an early logo that has a striking resemblance to Mario Kart DS's final logo, which they were clearly using as inspiration for this placeholder.
Mario Kart Wii! Woohoo!
Upon opening the game, you're greeted by its iconic title screen, and are then brought to the license select screen. I've never really thought much of the licenses in Mario Kart Wii, other than the fact that it's cool to see your progress through the cups visualized. But just now when working on this video, I realized that this is the only Mario Kart game to feature multiple different save files built in, which is probably to accommodate for the fact that the Wii was marketed as a console a whole family could use. Enough random cool facts though. After selecting a license and choosing the game mode you want to play, you're met with the character selection. This initial roster is pretty weird, featuring baby versions of Mario and Peach as playable characters alongside their adult selves. As you play more of the game though, this initial roster more than doubles by the time you've unlocked everything, making this game's character selection, at the time, the biggest in Mario Kart history. Featuring newcomers like of course the baby characters, but also Rosalina, Dry Bowser, your Mii, and of course the fan favorite Funky Kong. And alongside this huge cast of characters, also comes a huge variety of karts and bikes to choose from, with each weight class having its own selection of 6 karts and 6 bikes to choose from. The vehicle selection in this game is easily one of my favorites in the entire Mario Kart series, even factoring in 7 and 8's much more robust kart customization. There's some really cool vehicles here that trump the customization of those games just due to their design. I mean, you got the iconic Wild Wing and Flame Runner, the Bullet Bike and Dolphin Dasher. It's a real shame the only kart that they brought back from this game into 8 was the Blue Falcon, but even that's literally from F-Zero. Some of the combinations you can make here, like Toad and the Tiny Titan, are super cute. And I remember just how much dopamine I would get from hearing that iconic unlock sound. Speaking of unlockables though, Mario Kart Wii does an amazing job at rewarding players with not only just how much cool stuff there is to unlock, but how you unlock it. Coming from a game like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which literally has all speed classes and characters unlocked from the second you boot up the game, with the only unlockables being the kart parts which you just get over time by collecting coins in races, something you don't at all go out of your way to do, to Mario Kart Wii's unlock system is crazy. And while I respect 8 Deluxe's approach to having practically everything unlocked from the start so you can just get into whatever you want to do, there's something really special about some semblance of progression in a Mario Kart game. It gets you excited and gets you to explore parts of the game you may have never thought to check out. And no Mario Kart game does this idea better than Mario Kart Wii. Not only are there a ton of things to unlock here, but in most cases, there's more than one way to do it. For example, in order to unlock the legendary Funky Kong, you can either unlock 4 expert staff ghosts and time trials by beating 4 of the normal Nintendo time trial ghosts on any track, finish a total of 2,250 races overall, or 25 online ghost races, which basically just see you go up against a random ghost someone's uploaded online and try to beat it. These different unlock methods are super cool because it means regardless of what you do, you technically will eventually unlock just about everything by playing an absolutely insane amount of races. But for those who go out of their way to research online or buy a player's guide, they can easily pinpoint what thing they want to unlock and how they want to do it. Along with this, some of the unlockables also offer really cool challenges to the player that even the most diehard Mario Kart fans probably wouldn't be attempting due to how random they are. Like the Cheap Charger, which you can either unlock the boring way by slogging through and completing 1800 races, or by putting yourself through the challenge of getting an at least 1-star ranking in all the 50cc Retro Cups. Which means not only winning every race, but driving super well and maintaining your placement throughout the duration of your races. None of the challenges the game puts you through to unlock these things are ever too hard, so it still makes doing them a genuinely fun experience. Overall, the unlockables add a cool sense of progression that I will always appreciate, and is something I really hope to see return in a future Mario Kart game. Enough about unlockables though. One of the most important things for any Mario Kart to get right is its track selection. And when it comes to this entry, oh man did they nail it. Mario Kart Wii has easily the most iconic base track selection in the entire series. There are so many new courses here that would go on to be staples of the series. And I just want to highlight a few of my favorites, and why I think they're so great. Starting off with Toad's Factory. This is one of the very few Nitro courses in Wii that's never been remade. And while a lot of people were expecting to see it in the Booster Course Pass, I was not surprised when it didn't show up, as I firmly believe Nintendo are saving this course for the next Mario Kart. You can quote me on that. Onto the track itself, the factory setting is just so good. I mean, the music perfectly accompanying the factory theme, alongside all the obstacles of the track being the actual moving machinery of the factory, makes racing through this place a total blast. Although, I will never forgive this track for the absolutely evil Toads operating these bulldozers, and always making me get stuck in the mud here. Jokes aside, apart from the incredible design of the course, it also features this absurdly cool shortcut called the Lake Cut, that players have discovered that lets you completely jump over the body of water here, that I've always wished I could do. Moving on though, the next track I wanted to talk about is Coconut Mall. Now there's not much I can say about this course that hasn't already been said a million times, but I feel like I'd be lying if I didn't include this as one of my favorites. That Pianta Mall setting backed by its iconic music track never gets old. And I feel like while 7 and 8's rendition of the course are decent enough, nothing beats the way it's presented here. And I will always enjoy playing this track when I'm revisiting this game. On the complete opposite end of Coconut Mall though, one course from this game I don't see talked about nearly enough is Wii's take on Bowser's Castle. Now, Bowser's Castles are a staple of every Mario Kart, with some even featuring multiple, maybe too many. Super Circuit technically features 7, but none in my opinion compare to Wii's Bowser Castle. Everything from the eerie music, the volcanic atmosphere, the track itself, it's amazing and encompasses everything a Bowser's Castle should be. I especially love this track's take on the giant Mecha Bowser that's practically become a staple of every Mario Kart since Double Dash, as it shoots giant fireballs at you, which you have to avoid by tricking off of the half pipes. Probably the best part of this course is that it never gets boring. There's no big open area with nothing but track, as there's always some gimmick or obstacle in your path. And it's a great penultimate track before this game's extraordinary Rainbow Road. Seeing this track return in Mario Kart 8 was something I never knew I wanted until it happened. Wii's Rainbow Road will always be special. Being one of the most difficult Rainbow Roads right up there with Double Dashes, the sheer amount of times we've all plummeted back to Earth on this course forever cemented in Mario Kart history. And that Mario Galaxy theming with the star bits around the course and the hint of Good Egg Galaxy's theme in the song make it even better. Overall, Mario Kart Wii has some incredible courses, new and returning, and these tracks contribute a lot to the legacy and genius of the game. But wait, I think there's one big thing I've left out that really contributes to the popularity the tracks in this game have: the shortcuts. Although I briefly mentioned the late cut on Toad's Factory, Mario Kart Wii is famous for its sheer abundance of unintentional shortcuts that sometimes either save a couple seconds per lap, or in Grubble Volcano's case, completely break the track. These game-breaking shortcuts are commonly referred to as ultra shortcuts, and are some of the craziest shortcuts in Mario Kart history, completely breaking the tracks that have them, letting you skip huge portions of the course, and sometimes even allowing you to drive out of bounds like here in Coconut Mall's parking lot. But some of the regular shortcuts like the Mushroom Gorge and DK Summit gap jumps are just as famous, and even made their way into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, with Nintendo seemingly making them a bit easier to pull off, fully embracing them. These cuts have without a doubt had a big impact on Mario Kart Wii's legacy, and is a huge reason why its time trial scene is still so active today, with new discoveries still being made, like this new Ultra shortcut recently found on Luigi Circuit. Moving away from Ultra shortcuts though, Mario Kart Wii also introduced 3 new items to the series, which ironically were then subsequently removed in the next entry, Mario Kart 7, and never seen again. Those being the Mega Mushroom, Thundercloud, and Pow Block. The Mega Mushroom does exactly what you'd expect it to do. For a short amount of time, you grow to a ginormous size and are able to crush any drivers in your path, while also gaining a significant speed boost alongside that. This is the only item out of the 3 to technically appear again, being featured in Mario Kart Tour, but this is the same game that also features Vampire Waluigi as a playable character, so does it really count? The Mega Mushroom is a really cool item that I was so confused to not see appear again in Mario Kart 7. I mean, sure, at its core it's a basic star ripoff, with the only difference being that you squish players instead of causing them to crash when you hit them. But regardless of that, at the end of the day, it's still a super fun item that should really return. The Thundercloud, on the other hand, is not a super cool item. This item, when got from an item box, speeds you up significantly, but at the cost of being struck and shrunk by lightning after it goes off, with you being able to hand it off to other players by bumping into them, kind of like a hot potato situation. In theory, this item should be amazing. It's a great way to add another level of craziness to an already insane kart racer, forcing the player to think on their toes if they should hold on to it for as long as they can in order to get a nice speed boost, or if they should just hand it off early in order to not have to worry about it. But in execution, it's not like this at all. Most times you either accidentally are bumped into by another racer and have it taken from you, or you're unable to give it to anybody else in time and end up suffering the consequences. 9 times out of 10, you will never get the outcome you want from this thing, and makes it more of a nuisance than anything, which is why it's pretty unsurprising that it never came back. And the last of the 3 new items in this game is the POW block. A block that, when activated, causes a POW symbol to appear on the screens of everyone in front of you, making them spin out if they don't shake at the exact moment the POW strikes. I'm pretty indifferent towards the POW block. It's not a bad item by any means, but I rarely ever gain much from using it. All 3 items introduced in this game, while not all loved, do spice things up and add a lot to the craziness of the races in this game, and overall are pretty cool additions that I think deserve at least some more love from Nintendo. Speaking of items though, they couldn't be more important in one iconic Mario Kart mode that often gets overlooked: Battle Mode. And when talking about overlooked battle modes, Mario Kart Wii's is one I never see discussed anymore. Battle Mode here features 2 game modes, Balloon Battle and Coin Runners. And while these modes aren't really all that special, being the bare minimum people expect out of them, the tracks are on a whole nother level. Specifically, Funky Stadium and Chain Chomp Wheel have always stood out to me. Both of them start with you being launched into their arenas, and both have incredible songs to accompany them. Funky Stadium is this, well, stadium, with tons of ramps and half-pipes to trick off of, and is perfect for a battle mode. And Change Hop Wheel, on the other hand, takes place on a giant spinning roulette wheel. And while maybe not as perfect of a battle track as Funky Stadium is theming-wise, it's still an incredibly fun track to battle on that doesn't get nearly enough attention. I think the reason Mario Kart Wii's battle mode isn't talked about that much is because it doesn't feature many interesting modes, especially coming off of Double Dash, which had stuff like Shine Thief and Bomb Blast. Regardless though, I still think these two tracks are incredible, even if the rest of the mode isn't as great as some people wished it was. But if we're being honest, no one really plays Mario Kart's battle mode anyway anymore, and I think Nintendo knew that. Online multiplayer was easily one of the most exciting things surrounding Mario Kart Wii's release. Sure, it wasn't the first to feature it, as Mario Kart DS had introduced it 3 years before in 2005, being the game that actually launched Nintendo WFC. However, the online in that game had a lot of limitations, with half the courses in the game not even being playable online due to hardware limitations. With Wii though, all 32 courses would be playable. As well as that for the first time in Mario Kart history, 12 people would be racing at once, instead of the series' usual 8 up until that point. So the hype here was pretty huge. And at release, the online in this game was amazing. Being able to race with 11 other people from around the world, seeing where they were from when you joined a lobby, and the music that accompanied waiting for that one guy with the shitty Wi-Fi connection to join the lobby. It was great. But while the rest of the world was having fun racing around Daisy Circuit and growing their VR scores to try and reach the elusive 9999 VR, others saw Mario Kart Wii's Online as an opportunity. An opportunity to finally get back at the series for all the blue shells they were hit by as a kid, all the red shells that chased them down, and all the unfair losses that plagued their memories. Or they were just bored out of their mind and wanted to wreak havoc. Hacking. This was a huge part of Mario Kart Wii's Online back in the day. And I say huge part and not huge problem, as the hacking was some of the funniest stuff to come out of this game at its release. Nintendo had no way of stopping these hackers, and every once in a while playing online, you'd run into someone with an unreachable VR score that they hacked themselves in, and even before Lakitu can complete the countdown, they'd be launching 32 blue shells, lining the wall with green shells, and constantly spamming lightning bolts to make sure everyone was feeling their wrath. These hackers were rarely malicious either. At the end of the race, they would never boost ahead to win, but would almost always stick back and get last place, so that unreachably high VR score they hacked in would give everyone in the lobby a big boost to their own VR, almost as a reward for putting up with the hell they put you through. The chaos that ensued in these hacked lobbies are still some of the funniest early memories I have with this game, and will always have a special place in my heart. But as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And on May 20th, 2014, Mario Kart Wii's online servers were officially shut down, alongside every other online service for the Wii and DS, as the Wii U and 3DS were what Nintendo was focused on now, and they couldn't keep supporting a console that wasn't even being sold. This upset a lot of people. I mean, sure, Mario Kart 8 was only a few days away from releasing, but it just wasn't the same. They still wanted to be able to play the same game they'd been able to play online for years. So in classic Nintendo fan fashion, the community took matters into their own hands, and had their own online custom servers for the game up and ready 10 days before Nintendo shut down their own. Yeah. The name of this service is WiiMfi, and is still used today for not only Mario Kart, but a variety of Nintendo DS and Wii games that work with it. This service was a godsend to people disheartened by the announcement of the server shutting down, and it's how I'm still able to play Mario Kart Wii Online today on my actual Wii. It's super cool and something I highly recommend if you have a copy of the game in a Wii. It's literally as simple as inputting a few numbers into the internet settings, and is a great way to revisit this game. Mario Kart Wii is without a doubt one of the best kart racers out there. This is a timeless gem with a community that's just as active as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is, and one that I think will continue to flourish for a long time. Ever since its release all the way back in April of 2008, this game has consistently been praised for its great track selection, unique control options, amazing character roster, and of course, its insane shortcuts. A lot of games that people grew up with and suddenly remember and play again when they're older are blinded by the nostalgia from their childhood, overlooking the abundance of negative aspects in the game and only focusing on the memories they hold with it. With Mario Kart Wii, however, this isn't the case at all. This is a game that anyone can play for the first time now and love. It's a game that still stands just as strong as it did the day it was released. And due to the sheer dedication of its fan base, every aspect of it can be experienced today just as it could back in 2008. This is a game with a legacy so strong that when the Booster Course Pass was releasing, fans of other Mario Karts were starting to get jealous when Mario Kart Wii kept getting all the love from Nintendo. Everything from the abundance of Wii tracks they brought back to characters like Funky Kong shows Nintendo is quite aware of how much people love this game. And it's super funny to see them flounder around trying to appease that fan base, even including and making more accessible some of the famous shortcuts in Wii and the tracks they brought back. In the end, Mario Kart Wii will forever be a game I hold very close to my heart. And while my personal favorite Mario Kart might always be changing, this game will never not be special to me. The initial blueprint of what would eventually become Super Mario Galaxy can be traced all the way back to the year 2000, with the Super Mario 128 tech demo. Originally meant to simply show off the power of the GameCube with 128 Marios running around on screen, director of the demo Yoshiaki Koizumi began to think bigger. He believed that the spherical-based platforms used in the demo would be the perfect concept for a new game. However, was constantly shut down by those around him, who thought expanding on the idea would be impossible for technical reasons. But a few years later in 2004, after development was completed on Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto approached Koizumi and asked him to direct the next big 3D Mario, pushing for the spherical platform concept to be realized, as he believed it was more than possible. And after only 3 months, Koizumi and his team had created a working prototype of this idea, with the team quickly deciding that the spherical platforms would be best utilized as planetoids, and that the game should take place in outer space, with gravity being a big feature they wanted to implement as well. Interestingly, for a while, the game was referred to internally as Super Mario Revolution, with that being the original name Koizumi had for the prototype. But sometime in development, this was changed to Super Mario Galaxy because, well, space. Something that wasn't changed though was the idea for Mario to have a spin attack. You see, very early in development, the team realized just how wonky jumping on enemies on these planetoids was, with it especially being a concern for new players. So, a simple spin move was added to quickly deal with enemies in your way. Because to Koizumi, it was much simpler to just run up to an enemy and perform a spin than to have to aim a jump to land on their head. Initially, the spin attack was performed by quickly spinning the stick on the nunchuck. However, once it was confirmed that the Wii Remote would include motion sensing, it was changed to the iconic shake we all know and love today. Finally, as hilarious as it sounds, one of the biggest focuses the team had during development was fun. They didn't just want people to focus on beating the game, they wanted them to enjoy every moment and be lost in the wonder of the game's many different galaxies. With producer of the game, Takeo Shimizu, stating in an Iwata Asks interview that the ulterior motive of the game was to have everyone gathered around the TV, with the game even having tons of save files to encourage multiple players on one system. And as development finally wrapped up after about 3 years, Super Mario Galaxy was released here in North America on November 12th, 2007. Upon starting the game for the first time, you're met with one of the best openings to any Mario game. Through this super cute storybook style, you learn about the Star Festival. A festival that happens once every 100 years when a giant comet appears in the skies above the Mushroom Kingdom, sending countless shooting stars down to the planet. Then, just like Super Mario 64, Peach sends a letter to Mario, inviting him to the castle. The vibes of this opening section are magnificent. The starry sky, the upbeat music, and just the Mushroom Kingdom itself is a blast to explore here. As you'd expect, things aren't cheery for long as Bowser and his airship fleet attack the Mushroom Kingdom. This scene with meteors raining down from the sky and toads being crystallized right in front of you as Mario carefully runs through the chaos, only to look up and see Bowser's airships donning that iconic black flag, is genuinely so cool. The stark contrast between the relaxing and upbeat vibes of the beginning of this section to it turning into a literal war zone is insane. And as you quickly make your way to the princess, even running through the opening area outside the castle from Super Mario 64, it's already too late. As this time, Bowser has a giant UFO that literally lasers the ground around it and rips the castle from the earth, pulling it into space, with Mario barely holding on. Only for Kamek to notice this and cast a spell that sends Mario flying off into space screaming, as Kamek, Peach, and the castle itself disappear into nothing. I really love this opening. The fact Nintendo decided to pull a complete 180 with Bowser's character, going from whatever he was in Sunshine,
Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
to this menacing villain who could honestly care less about bombing a peaceful kingdom is so cool. Could you imagine how much lamer the scene of Bowser confronting Peach would be if he was actually speaking English instead of his monstrous growls? It wouldn't be nearly as impactful. And I think Nintendo made an excellent choice portraying him as an actual threat this time around. But after such an intense and action-packed opening, the game winds things down for its tutorial, as you wake up on this small planet. Once you gain control of Mario, you're tasked with hunting down these 3 star bunnies. And while this may seem like a mundane task, the action of finding them not only helps you familiarize yourself with the controls more if you weren't already accustomed to them during the Star Festival, it also helps you learn how it feels to move around a planetoid and mess around with the gravity without any looming threat. The calm and serene vibes of this small planetoid do a great job at making the player feel safe. If this kind of tutorial were happening while Bowser was raining meteors down on you or you were in a rush to get to the castle, you wouldn't nearly take the amount of time you need to comfortably get acclimated with the planetoid and gravity controls. But giving the player this literal sanctuary to learn is amazing. I love how instead of being all in your face about how you should learn the mechanics like some games do, Galaxy disguises its tutorial with bunny hunting, with the bunnies promising to tell you about where you are if you find them. And after you do find them, you're greeted by Rosalina, who briefly explains her role as Guardian of the Cosmos, and tells Mario that in order to save his special one, he'll need to harness the power to travel through space, and entrusts him with a Master Luma who grants you a spin attack you can perform by shaking the remote. And with that, you're thrust right into the action, with the orchestral soundtrack picking up as soon as you begin your journey to rescue the Grand Stars and Peach. Speaking of the soundtrack, Super Mario Galaxy was the first Mario game to have a fully orchestrated soundtrack, which for the time was incredible. Obviously Mario Galaxy wasn't the first video game to do it, but the scale at which it was done, and the fact it was all recorded live, was remarkable. Up to this point, most game OSTs were made entirely digitally, but in order to make Super Mario Galaxy as epic of a journey as Nintendo wanted, they enlisted the help of a live orchestra to make the amazing tracks that make up this game's OST. I don't think some of the bigger moments like Gusty Garden or even Bowser's airship attack would be nearly as impactful if it was just all made digitally. The fact this game takes place in space and takes advantage of live music makes it feel like so much more than any Mario game that came before it, and to a lot of people, any Mario game that came after. The immersion I feel in Good Egg Galaxy with its beautiful starry space sky and incredible score just hits different. One of the coolest things I think this game does with its music, though, is the progression of the Comet Observatory theme. When you first arrive here, it's completely dull. Almost the entire place is shrouded in darkness, with the core at the center burning very dimly. And the music reflects this. The tone is very calm, quaint, and honestly mysterious. using very little instruments, only a soft harp and piano being the main focus. As you progress and the Comet Observatory becomes more lively, the music does as well, with the second rendition of the theme incorporating more orchestration, and honestly is something you'd hear at like a wedding hall or something. It's upbeat, lively, but not crazy, and is probably my favorite of the three. The third and final theme, however, is where things really pick up. The Comet Observatory is fully activated again, and so is the orchestra because oh my god, they go crazy on this. It sounds so triumphant and full, and is the theme most people know. The inclusion of little things like this really goes to show the passion the team behind this game had. They wanted you to not only see the progression of the Comet Observatory with more domes activating and the lights coming back on, but they also wanted you to feel it as well with the music. This is what the Comet Observatory really is, and I'll never get tired of listening to any one of these three tracks. While we're here though, why don't we talk about the Comet Observatory itself? This place has honestly gotta be one of the coolest hub worlds in any video game. What I love most about this place is that it genuinely feels like a home for Rosalina and the Lumas. The domes aren't just there to help you fly to galaxies and collect power stars. They're actual places you'd find in a home. Domes like the kitchen, bedroom, and fountain are probably the best examples of this, but the garden, terrace, and engine room still fit well, especially when you consider the fact that this is also a spaceship. I remember as a kid, if I was stuck on something or was just bored, I'd walk around this place forever, just listening to the music, seeing what the Lumas had to say, and appreciating the vibes of this place. Also, Luigi's here. Easily the best part of the Comet Observatory though is Rosalina's storybook. As you progress in the game, a door near the kitchen will open with Rosalina inside reading a storybook to the Lumas, with the more stars you get adding more chapters to the story. This story is genuinely one of the most beautiful in any Mario game, and the presentation of it being told through the storybook aesthetic with the beautiful artwork just adds to that. The story is about a young girl who finds a spaceship crash-landed and meets a young Luma. The Luma tells her that she's waiting for her mother, but after waiting for a very long time, no one shows up. So the pair decide to fix up the spaceship and surf the stars looking for the Luma's mother. As the two explore the cosmos, we learn about the little girl's story, and eventually the fact that her mother passed away long ago. As she grieves her mother, and the Luma does as well, the little girl decides that she's going to be the mother that these Lumas need, and begins to construct the starship. As the story progresses though, you begin to realize that this isn't just the story of any little girl, but actually Rosalina, and is how she came to be the mother of the Lumas and pilot the Comet Observatory. This is such a beautiful way to create a backstory for a character, and for it to happen in a Mario game of all places is crazy. The story behind this story though is even more interesting. You see, deep stories are never focuses of mainline Mario games. The focus is always the gameplay and making it as fun as possible. But director of the game Yoshiaki Koizumi felt that Super Mario Galaxy was different, and could benefit from some major deep story elements, but was afraid Miyamoto wouldn't approve of the team taking time to write a story when they could be working on the gameplay. So in secret, Koizumi would stay after hours at the office and wrote the entire thing by himself, and once it was finished, presented it to Miyamoto, who allowed it to be featured in the final game. I think the story behind this makes Rosalina's storybook hit even harder. This was a complete passion project that Koizumi literally kept secret from everyone till it was finished, and I love that. And then there's the core of the game, the galaxies themselves. And while I won't be able to talk about every one, I did want to highlight some of my favorites, starting off with Battle Rock Galaxy. The vibes here are some of the best in the game. The stars here see you infiltrating and literally blowing up the place from inside. I have no idea if this was intentional or not, but every time I play this stage, I'm always reminded of Star Wars. The epic and suspenseful music, the fact that this asteroid has been colonized into a battle station, and of course that you literally blow it up from the inside, reeks of the Death Star. And I'm not complaining either. I think the idea works weirdly well with this game, and is one of the many ways space is portrayed in this game. This time portraying the Star Wars epic battle explosion aspect of space. This galaxy is also home to the infamous trash bombing star, which, although not very tough in the base game, becomes miles more difficult in this game's secret New Game Plus that we'll talk about later. One of the coolest things this stage does, though, is tell a story. When you first get here and grab a star by blowing up this glass, nothing really happens. But after the second star sees you blow up a part of the base, you attract the attention of the Top Man tribe, who begin to guard the place, with the final star seeing you attack the clan and blow the place up. I've always imagined that the Top Man tribe saw Mario infiltrate their battle station and decided to fight back and step up their security, only to be completely destroyed by him. Battle Rock isn't the only galaxy that tells a story either. Honey Hive Galaxy also tells a bit of a story through its stars. You see, the second star of this stage has you defeat a big Mandy bug in order to collect a star. But in the third star, you see this attack Mario did caused a full-on war, with the Mandybug clan infesting the Bee's kingdom and Mario having to stop them. It's super simple, but little things like this in this game's levels have always been cool to me. It makes the galaxy feel alive, and shows us there's a lot more going on than Bowser just trying to take over. Honey Hive itself, though, is definitely one of the coolest stages in this game. Its open design is very reminiscent of the open-ended 3D Marios that came before it, as Galaxy was trying to step away from that, with this game having more linear-focused objectives. But including this as a nice little treat for those who love those games was a cute touch. The Bee Mario power-up introduced here also gives you a really nice way to explore the galaxy, and I love just being a little bee exploring my kingdom. It's super fun. Although climbing on this queen bee to collect star chips always made me a bit uncomfortable. But I forgive everything because this stage sees the introduction of the GOAT, Captain Toad. Hey man, you're kinda hurting my eyes. Another galaxy I love is Freeze Flame Galaxy. This one's big gimmick is that one of the planets is really hot and the other is really cold. The contrast between the very blue and cold lighting of the snow level to the very red and warm lighting of the lava side has always stood out to me. I love how these elements combine with the final star as well. This stage sees the proper introduction of both the Ice and Fire Flower power-ups. I really like Ice Mario's design in this game compared to the revised design we got in New Super Wii. Having Mario turn into pure ice makes a lot more sense for the power-up, as you literally freeze the water you walk on to create platforms. But also, it just looks really cool. The Fire Flower, on the other hand, while not having a unique design, come on, how cool would it have been to turn Mario into pure lava? Does feel super nice to control. Although you can't walk on lava, I've always liked how powerful Mario feels in this state. Shaking to propel a giant fireball in front of you is miles cooler than simply pressing a button to shoot a tiny little fireball like in the 2D games. And the fact that it has a time limit makes it feel even more special. The coolest part of this galaxy, though, is definitely the final star, which sees you skating across lava platforms to reach a star. The skating controls just feel really nice for some reason. Nintendo always gets that right. Overall, Super Mario Galaxy has some of the best levels in any 3D platformer. Not only are they really cool in their design and incredibly fun to play through, a lot of these stages excel in their magnificent atmosphere. You got Space Junk Galaxy, which sees you slowly floating through a garbage-filled wasteland, emphasizing the loneliness and emptiness of space in the best way possible. Gusty Garden Galaxy, a beautiful wonderland accompanied by one of the most iconic orchestral tracks in gaming history, and so many more. The atmosphere of Super Mario Galaxy is easily the biggest reason I often prefer it to Galaxy 2. It feels like so much work was put into making these galaxies as immersive as possible, and that focus is really special to me. Every time I finish a playthrough of this game, I'm constantly thinking about how beautiful the worlds are. The breathtaking views, the starry skies, and the color or lack of color some of these galaxies have. Combining this with the story makes Super Mario Galaxy such a special experience outside of just gameplay. Sure, the gameplay's great, but the vibes and aesthetic are what really stand out to me the most. And I'm almost certain it's why a lot of people prefer Galaxy 1 over 2, even though Galaxy 2 is arguably way better in terms of its gameplay. I think this game is also one of the best examples of why power isn't everything. The Wii was heavily underpowered compared to the PS3 and Xbox 360, but was still able to be the home to one of Nintendo's most beautiful games. And then there's Bowser. After your encounter with him at the beginning of the game, you don't see him till the end of the second dome, the fountain, where you face off against him. The level leading up to this is super cool, with the Road to Bowser theme from Super Mario 64 returning for these levels. The fights with Bowser himself leading up to the final one are pretty awesome. They see you trapped on a small planetoid with him, and your goal being to trick him into jumping and landing on these glass windows that cover the core of the planetoid, with the lava inside burning him as you smack him in the face with the spin attack. These Bowser fights are cool, and so are the junior ones, specifically Mega Leg, which sees you scaling and destroying a giant robot, but nothing compares to the insane finale of this game. After collecting 60 Power Stars, Rosalina will ask if you want to travel to the center of the universe. When you click yes, this insanely cool cutscene will play of her guiding the Comet Observatory through Bowser's airship barrage, and giving Mario a clear path into the castle to find Peach. This final level is so jam-packed with so many different level themes and ideas, and is honestly just a blast to run through every time I beat this game. Crossing this small sun as the platforms move against you, skating across ice blocks that only appear once you get close enough, making it through the final lava cylinder gauntlet, it's really unique. And the mishmash of all the different level themes makes it feel like a big culmination of a lot of the big galaxies you explored, and really puts your platforming skills to the test. And then there's the face-off with Bowser himself. Running up this platform as he shoots fireballs at you is super cool, but the real fun begins when the fight starts. This fight sees Bowser use techniques he never used in the previous encounters, which I really like. In the first, he turns into a boulder, almost predicting Rock Mario from Galaxy 2, with you having to hit the part of him that's sticking out to deal any real damage. The second sees him learn from his mistakes and come at you fully inside of his spiny shell, with you having to knock him out of his shell by smacking him in the face with these bush thingies. And the final phase sees you two at the literal center of the universe, with Bowser reverting to his old tricks and you having to exploit his jump so he lands on the lava. Landing that final hit on Bowser feels so good, and the game makes sure to accentuate that point with this awesome final scene. But things aren't over just yet. As Mario and Peach escape, and Bowser's empire begins to crumble right in front of him, his reactor being destroyed causes a huge explosion, resulting in a giant black hole. And in order to save Mario and Peach, the Luma sacrifice themselves in this beautiful ending cutscene. But the game doesn't end there. After going back to the final level and beating it after collecting all 120 Power Stars, you're met with one of the greatest pop-ups in any video game.
Super Luigi Galaxy!
Yes, Luigi. Super Luigi Galaxy is definitely the coolest hidden post-game in any Nintendo game. Playing as Luigi not only controls a lot different than Mario, with him being much more slippery and jumping higher, but certain stars like the trash bombing star I mentioned earlier are much more difficult, and leads to this being a new game plus in my opinion. Overall, having Luigi be a secret unlockable character after you 100% the main game is such a fun detail, and one that literally nobody expected when they beat this for the first time. Next up, we gotta get Super Mario Galaxy. Super Mario Galaxy is one of the most ambitious games Nintendo has ever made, and it really paid off. This game did so many things that the Mario series, and hell, any 3D platformer at that time, couldn't even dream of achieving. The orchestral music, the creative level design, and the pure aesthetic and atmosphere of this game is something that still sticks with me to this day. Super Mario Galaxy isn't just Mario in space, it's Mario on a cosmic journey that forever changed the way we look at the series. You have the introduction of Rosalina, who would become a mainstay for years to come, appearing in almost every Mario spin-off, and even main series games like 3D World. You have the Lumas, who, similar to Rosalina, have become mainstays as well, even appearing in the Mario movie. And the concept for this game was so good that Nintendo released a sequel only 3 years later in 2010, something we've never seen from the Mario series since then. At the end of the day, this game will always hold a special place in my heart. And the genius of it, and the effect it had on the gaming industry, is still seen today and will be seen for years to come. Super Mario Galaxy is an absolute masterpiece. After Super Mario Galaxy 1 released to critical acclaim back in 2007, Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto approached the team who developed the game and requested that a follow-up to it be made. This follow-up was originally meant to be nothing more than some new levels and bosses, very similar to what you see in DLC for games nowadays. At first, the team wasn't immediately on board with Miyamoto's idea of a follow-up, but after meeting together and reflecting on their work on Galaxy, the team realized just how many things they wished they could have implemented in Galaxy 1, and just how many things they wished they could have done better in the game. After this meeting, the team was booming with ideas for this follow-up. Everyone working on the game, even the visual and sound designers, had their own idea for a unique stage or gimmick. And due to all these ideas, the game eventually expanded from a simple follow-up under the title of Super Mario Galaxy More to a full-fledged sequel under the title of Super Mario Galaxy 2. The big thing that inspired the team's sudden boom in ideas and spirit during Galaxy 2's early development was the inclusion of Yoshi. Yoshi was a character that the team desperately wanted to include in the first game, but whether it be due to time constraints or just Nintendo's higher-ups not wanting to bloat the game with too many features that they wouldn't be able to fully expand upon, he was never added. With Galaxy 2, however, Yoshi was going to be one of the game's main selling points, and was absolutely going to be fully expanded upon. Yoshi's inclusion in the game opened up the possibility to so many new gameplay and level ideas, and was instrumental in keeping the team's morale alive during the early stages of development. And after a just over 2-year development period spanning from late 2007 to early 2010, Super Mario Galaxy 2 was officially released here in North America on May 23, 2010. Upon starting the game, you're met with a very similar opening to that of the first game. Peach has invited Mario over to the castle to eat cake and watch the Star Festival, a festival that only occurs once every 100 years. The big difference with Galaxy 2's opening, however, is just how much more simple it is. In Galaxy 1, you had this beautiful storybook-style explanation of what the Star Festival was, a fully voice-acted letter from Peach, a 3D environment to explore that was just gorgeous by Wii standards, and of course, the amazing cutscenes. Here though, all those amazing things that made the original's opening so great are extremely dumbed down here and kinda make the entire thing feel uninspired in ways. I mean, the whole sequence is almost entirely in 2D, plot points that were well executed in Galaxy 1 like Mario's introduction to his companion Luma, and Bowser kidnapping Peach now feel forced. The atmosphere is much less immersive, and generally, everything is just a lot more bare bones. Now, despite all these issues, I do think this opening can partially be excused. I mean, you have to take into account the fact that everyone playing Galaxy 2 has most likely already played Galaxy 1, and since story-wise, Galaxy 2 is framed as a retelling of Galaxy 1, as evident from the very first screen in the game saying, "Now let me tell you a new story that also begins with Stardust," and the Star Festival happening again despite 100 years clearly not having passed, this opening was most likely much more simple and to the point because pretty much everyone already knows how this story starts. And instead of wasting development time trying to recapture the beauty of an opening everyone already experienced, they just decided to throw the player right into the action so they could experience the new stuff. Overall, I think this opening is fine. It's obviously a huge downgrade from Galaxy 1's, But with the added context of this game being a retelling, it at least makes a little more sense that way. Moving into the first level of this game, Sky Station Galaxy, I actually really like this stage. It does such a great job at subtly introducing how this game's physics work in a way that allows players who never played Galaxy 1 to, over the course of the level, get a decent understanding of how the gravity and movement works, but also in a way that doesn't bore people already familiar with how Galaxy's physics work with long-winded tutorial areas. Galaxy 2 even goes as far to reward those familiar with the controls and physics by adding this faster path you can take by spinning and wall jumping on the side of Yoshi's house to reach the top quickly. This is an absolutely genius way to handle the first level of a sequel. Rather than heavily focusing on one audience and alienating the other, the game instead strikes a pretty good balance between the two, and creates a level that very seamlessly appeals to both those familiar with Galaxy's controls, and those who are newcomers to the series. There are so many little things in this level that you don't really think about, like this miniature planet section here, that are actually there to help newcomers understand how concepts like gravity work. It's incredibly clever. And speaking of clever design choices, let's talk about this game's hub world, Starship Mario. Starship Mario is honestly one of my favorite video game hub worlds. I mean, it's obviously no Peach's Castle, Comet Observatory, or Delfino Plaza, but it's still really cool in its own ways. For one, I mean, you got Lubba. Lubba is essentially the Rosalina equivalent of this game, minus the incredibly emotional and well-crafted backstory, of course. As a kid, I always loved Lubba. He seems like this lively, jolly little Luma who just wanted to help Mario out. But looking back at him now, I don't know. I don't really trust him that much. But we'll talk about him a little more later. Returning back to Starship Mario itself, this place is so cool. Despite literally just being a giant Mario head, it's designed in a way that actually takes advantage of that. Things like the transition from Mario's hair to his hat are represented through a staircase. The area where Mario's neck would be is represented by a small fenced area. The brim of Mario's hat is a stone wall. Mario's ear hole is a pipe. It's all so charming. The gravity here is also taken advantage of really well. Running and jumping around feels amazing. I really love how they decided to make a giant planetoid a hub world. My absolute favorite thing about this hub world, though, is how over time, and as you explore more galaxies, more and more characters populate the ship and make the place feel a lot more lively. With these new characters also comes a progression in Starship Mario's theme over time, almost identical to what they did with the Comet Observatory in Galaxy 1. At first, the theme only uses a few instruments, but as more characters start to call Starship Mario their home, the music reflects this, getting a lot more lively, before finally feeling complete. Details like this are what make the Galaxy games so special to me. This is something you wouldn't notice at all really in gameplay, but when you do, it makes you appreciate the games a lot more. Overall, Starship Mario, while definitely not as cool and memorable as the Comet Observatory, is still an excellent hub world. Walking around this place is a ton of fun, and I will always enjoy talking with the various NPCs scattered about. But hey, while we're in Starship Mario, how about we check out something new in Galaxy 2? The world map. I honestly don't really like this. The world map makes the progression feel a lot more linear, and the map itself is pretty soulless. Just compare the world map here to the domes in Galaxy 1. The domes not only made the progression feel natural and made unlocking things tons of fun, they were also very aesthetically pleasing. Places like the fountain, the bedroom, and the garden made the Comet Observatory feel like a home. And choosing a level from the solar system-esque map just made the entire experience a lot more immersive. Whereas navigating Galaxy 2's world map just feels like navigating a new Super Mario Bros. World map, except minus the cool background environments. But Galaxy 2's world map isn't all bad. For one, I really like the custom music each world has. It's a genuine step up from Galaxy 1's domes that just use the same music throughout all of them. Another thing I really like about Galaxy 2's world map is how, depending on what world you're in, the sky surrounding Starship Mario will change to reflect that. Just take a look. This is such a cool detail, and creates at least a little bit of atmosphere. But moving away from the world map and Starship Mario, we have without a doubt one of the most important aspects to look at when judging if this game is a good sequel or not. The gameplay and galaxies. And while I won't be able to mention every single galaxy in the game, I am going to mention a few that I think are worth talking about. Starting off with Hightail Falls Galaxy. This galaxy makes use of Yoshi, and while not his first appearance in the game, that would be in Yoshi Star Galaxy, this has to be one of my favorite uses of him in the entire game. Hightail Falls' whole gimmick has the player make use of the Dash Pepper, a power-up exclusive to Yoshi that causes him to run at insane speeds that even a certain hedgehog would be jealous of, only being able to be stopped by crashing into a wall. Throughout the entirety of this level, your goal is to try to control Yoshi at his insane speeds while dodging obstacles and taking sharp turns. I absolutely love how one of Galaxy 2's new additions, the Comet Medal, a coin that allows prankster comets to appear in whatever level you collect it in, has the player take a genuine risk in order to collect it here. What this galaxy does best though is its creativity. The Dash Pepper is such a cool idea for Yoshi because it makes controlling him essentially like driving an out-of-control car that's impossible to stop. And combining this with literally being able to run up and around walls, this whole level just gives you a huge adrenaline rush the first time around. It's a ton of fun. Speaking of a huge adrenaline rush in a stage, just look at Fleet Glide Galaxy. Fleet Glide Galaxy is less of an entire level and more of a short minigame, but I still think it's absolutely worth talking about. This galaxy has Mario teaming up and flying with a bird called Fluzzard. You control Fluzzard by tilting the Wii remote in whatever direction you want to go. Very similar to controlling the plane in Wii Sports Resort's Island Flyover, with your goal being to reach the end of the stage without crashing. Apart from just how fun it is to fly with Fluzzard, the highlight of this stage is undoubtedly the atmosphere. The stage takes place on a giant rocket ship. This rocket ship is filled with tons of enemies to avoid, and at the very end of the stage, has the player literally avoiding falling pillars and support beams as the rocket ship collapses from the inside right in front of you, with the thrilling orchestral music bringing it all together. This short minigame galaxy strikes a perfect balance between fun gameplay and breathtaking atmosphere. I love it. Winding things down a bit though, we have Starshine Beach Galaxy. This galaxy takes direct inspiration from Super Mario Sunshine with its more open level design, beach-themed aesthetic, and literally just having Piantas inhabit the place. I think this stage honestly does the beach theme a lot better than Beach Bowl Galaxy does in the original Mario Galaxy. This level is just so much more open. I always find myself taking my time here, exploring the place, talking to the Piantas, and vibing to the music. This stage also makes great use of one of this game's new power-ups, the Cloud Flower, in one of its missions. In this mission, you use the Cloud Flower to scale this giant tower. But since touching the water with the Cloud Flower results in you losing the power-up, in order to have enough cloud platforms to reach the top, you have to glide across the water on a lily pad, very reminiscent of the lily pad ride from Sunshine. This level is just full of Sunshine references, even bringing back the famous Chucksters. This stage excels in a lot of ways, but I think the strongest is that it directly improves upon a level theme from the first game. But I mean, why stop at a galaxy inspired by another 3D Mario game? How about an entire remake of a Super Mario 64 level? Throwback Galaxy. This stage is amazing. It was an absolutely genius idea to bring this stage back for a Galaxy game. I mean, the original Whomp's Fortress from Mario 64 was already floating in the air, and was one of the only stages in the game that you could literally fall off of into the void. And the linear design of the place makes it fit in surprisingly well with all the other galaxies. There are also some little details here that imply that Mario's already been here before, and actually establishes a bit of continuity between the games. You got the red Babam who recognizes Mario, and the chipped wall Mario broke in the mission Blast Away the Wall back in Mario 64. Gameplay-wise, this stage is just a joy to play through. Platforming across the fortress and having that long-awaited rematch with the Whomp King will just leave you with a giant smile on your face the entire time. Throwback Galaxy works as a remake here because Galaxy 2 doesn't over-rely on nostalgia throughout its entire runtime. Rather, it throws this in here as a cool little callback, but also because the stage's design genuinely works here. Its inclusion doesn't feel forced at all. Overall, the various different galaxies here are easily the strongest part of the entire game. I genuinely believe that the level design here is a big step up from Galaxy 1. There's so much creativity present in every stage. And the introduction of Yoshi, new power-ups, comet medals, and countless new stage gimmicks make the galaxies in this game absolutely a step up from the original game in terms of their gameplay. But gameplay isn't the only important aspect to consider when determining if a game is a good sequel or not, which leads me to my biggest gripe with Galaxy 2, its atmosphere and story. Starting off with the story, I obviously know Mario games aren't really about their story, but as the sequel to the Mario game with a story, it's a real shame they didn't try to do anything here. I think they absolutely could have taken advantage of the fact that this game is a retelling and spiced things up a little bit. I mean, just look at Lubba. Despite being a main character, he is barely explored at all. Just imagine how cool it would have been if we got a backstory for Lubba near the end of the game, and it was revealed to the player that Lubba was an evil Luma cast off the Comet Observatory. And the reason he was so reluctant and happy to help Mario was because he was using him to collect stars so he could take revenge on Rosalina and the other Lumas. I mean, he really only agrees to team up with Mario once he realizes he's trusted by young Master Luma, an extremely powerful Luma. Lubba could have been an extremely cool twist villain near the end of the game before you fight Bowser, and his backstory could have really helped this game establish a bit more of a serious tone like Galaxy 1 had. I'm curious to hear what other people think of this though, so please, leave a comment on what you think of Galaxy 2's story. Moving on to the atmosphere, I think this was absolutely the biggest downgrade from Galaxy 1 to 2. The reason people love Galaxy 1 so much is largely because of its atmosphere. The atmosphere was the reason narrative elements like Rosalina's storybook and the final cutscene were so emotional. It was the reason the Star Festival and Bowser's airship attack were so immersive. And it was the reason galaxies like Gusty Garden and Buyo Base were so memorable. Super Mario Galaxy took space as a way to make levels more atmospheric, whereas I feel Galaxy 2 kind of abandoned that, and instead took space as a way to make levels as outlandish and crazy as possible. I definitely think these approaches both have their strengths, but Galaxy 1 takes the cake here for me because it still did have those outlandish aspects we're used to with Mario. It just heavily leaned towards a more atmospheric approach, and in a lot of ways, made a first playthrough of that game more memorable than a first playthrough of Galaxy 2. There's just something about the atmosphere of the first game that has always stuck with me, and I really wish Galaxy 2 was able to expand upon that more, rather than straying away from it. But regardless of your thoughts on Galaxy 2's story and atmosphere, one thing I think we can all agree Galaxy 2 did really well was its Bowser levels. If we're talking atmosphere, I think these levels are one of the very few areas in this game that are actually able to capture Galaxy 1's atmosphere pretty well. The music here, along with the set pieces in these levels, are incredible. Gameplay wise, these stages are tons of fun too. I absolutely love the way the 2D sections and Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet take advantage of the gravity. And the giant floating cylinders in the Snake Block section and Bowser's lava layer are great too. The Bowser fights though are where things get a bit more interesting. Bowser's main gimmick in this game is that he is gigantic, just absolutely huge. So the way you fight him here is much different than how you fought him in Galaxy 1, which I really appreciate. Instead of trying to flip Bowser over like you did in Galaxy 1, your goal here now is to wait for him to call a bunch of meteors in, avoid his punch that causes the meteors to rise from the ground, and ground pound the newly risen meteors at the right angles so they smack Bowser right in the face. I honestly really like this style of boss fight. It feels so satisfying to just smack Bowser in the face with a giant meteor. And while the first Bowser levels and fights are fun, they are nothing in comparison to the final level and fight. After battling your way through 6 worlds and collecting enough stars to advance forward, you're met with the final Bowser level of the game, Bowser's Galaxy Generator. This final level is pretty much a perfect culmination of all the skills the game has taught you thus far along your journey. Very similar to Galaxy 1's final level, but also very different. This level makes use of power-ups you found along your journey like the Spindrill and Cloudflower, concepts you learned like how to platform in 2D around these cylindrical planets, and even has you using Yoshi for a majority of it, making use of his Dash Pepper and Blimp Fruit abilities at one point. I really like this final stage. And while I don't know which one I like more, I absolutely think this stage lives up to Galaxy 1's final level. It has everything a final level needs in a Mario Galaxy game. It's suspenseful, action-packed, and fun. But after making your way through the final section of the stage and saying goodbye to Yoshi, you're met with the big man himself, Bowser. I really like this final fight. Bowser still does all the same stuff he did in the previous fight, but now his falling meteors try to predict where you'll be when they land, rather than just hovering above you. His flames are much harder to avoid, his punches and meteors send shockwaves across the planet, and overall, Bowser is just much more threatening. But after 4 hits to the face, Bowser is defeated, the Grand Star is free from his clutches, and before being able to say anything to Mario, Bowser plummets into the abyss, being sucked into some purple vortex. And with that, Mario can finally collect the final Grand Star, bringing an end. Yeah, it's not that simple. After seemingly being defeated, Bowser returns and harnesses the power of the Grand Star yet again in a last-ditch effort to defeat Mario. This final fight is so cool. Instead of avoiding Bowser's punches and meteors on a tiny planet, you're now literally in the midst of being sucked into a black hole, and have to hit Bowser with the meteorites before he's able to catch up to you and attack you. The music and atmosphere here is perfect. It sucks that this is one of only a few cases where the game is like this, but hey, I'll take what I can get. This final sequence is executed masterfully and perfectly captures what the Galaxy games are all about.
Huh? Oh. Oh.
But even after the credits roll, the game still isn't over yet. After returning to Starship Mario, you'll find that not only have you unlocked the ability to switch to Luigi at any time, but you've also unlocked an entire new world, World S. World S is full of so many creative galaxies that are an absolute joy to play through. You got Twisty Trials Galaxy, Rolling Coaster Galaxy, Boss Blitz Galaxy, and others too. World S is a really cool post-game edition, but the game doesn't just stop here. After collecting all 120 stars and defeating Bowser once again, you unlock the real post-game content of Galaxy 2, the Green Stars. Once you unlock them, Green Stars get spread about every single galaxy in the game. And when I say every galaxy, I mean every galaxy. The one-off Hungry Luma galaxies, the Bowser galaxies, and even the Fluzzard galaxies have their own fair share of Green Stars to collect. I think the Green Stars are an absolutely genius way to handle the post-game, and honestly are much better than the New Game Plus you get with Luigi and Mario Galaxy 1. Green Stars incentivize you to look at levels in an entirely different way. So many areas in the game, like the top of this giant ramp in Hightail Falls, that at first seemingly had no reason to exist, now hold a Green Star to collect. I've had a ton of fun searching through levels trying to find Green Stars, and just being surprised at how well some of them are hidden. And even if you may find collecting them all a little annoying, the reward for finding all 120 of them is absolutely worth it. You unlock the true final level of the game, Grandmaster Galaxy. The first star of this level seems innocent enough. It's a decently challenging level, but has a bunch of checkpoints spread all throughout it, and make beating it pretty manageable. The Prankster Comet Star of this stage, though, is one of the most infamous missions in Mario history. A mission that many regard as the hardest Mario level of all time, the Perfect Run. The Perfect Run not only makes sections of the first mission harder, it also removes every single checkpoint, and most notably, requires you to beat the entirety of the stage without getting hit once. I am not joking when I tell you it took me like 5 hours to beat this stage for the first time. It is easily one of the most equally fun and frustrating Mario levels of all time, and in my opinion, is the hardest Mario stage ever, even harder than Champion's Road. Beating this level is one of the most satisfying feelings in any Mario game. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is an interesting game and an equally interesting sequel. There's so many things to love about it, like its fun boss fights, engaging level design, and quirky characters, but also some things to dislike about it, like its lackluster story and atmosphere when compared to its predecessor. All in all, I really think it depends on what you value in a game when judging how Galaxy 2 fares as a sequel. I know people who don't care about Galaxy 1's story and easily crown Galaxy 2 as a good sequel based off its gameplay alone. But I also know people who absolutely cherished Galaxy 1's story and atmosphere, and have a hard time appreciating Galaxy 2 just because of how much it ignored the aspects they loved so much about the first one. Personally, I've had phases of which game I like more. But to finally answer the question posed at the very beginning of this video, is Super Mario Galaxy 2 a bad sequel? While it obviously isn't as memorable as Galaxy 1, Galaxy 2 still maintains most of Galaxy 1's core philosophies, and does improve upon them a lot, introducing so much, even if it does fall flat in some other aspects. So, in the end, while I don't think Galaxy 2 is a perfect sequel, and overall I do prefer Galaxy 1, I think Super Mario Galaxy 2 is still a great sequel, and an absolutely stellar Mario experience start to finish. This game needs to be on Switch. Released here in North America on November 15th, 2009, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is the second entry in the New Super Mario Bros. Series, and the first 2D Mario game to be released on a home console since Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo all the way back in 1990. Development for this game likely started shortly after New Super DS's release in mid-2006, with the main goal the team had being to create a 2D Mario game with real-time couch co-op. You see, head developer and creator of Mario, Shigeru Miyamoto, had dreamed of creating a Mario game with simultaneous multiplayer ever since Super Mario Bros.' release on the NES in 1985. As all multiplayer in Mario's 2D mainline entries up to that point had been limited to switching characters with someone when someone died, as opposed to both players being able to play at the same time. New Super Mario Bros. Wii wasn't the first time Miyamoto had really tried this idea either. Very famously, Super Mario 64 was meant to feature simultaneous split-screen multiplayer between Mario and Luigi, with Luigi's model even being found deep in the code. But this idea never ended up making it past testing due to the N64's hardware limitations. With New Super Mario Bros. Wii, however, they were finally in the position to make this dream happen, with it eventually becoming pretty much the main selling point of the game, and a huge reason as to why New Super Wii is remembered so fondly. Simultaneous multiplayer wasn't the only new thing they wanted to add in this game, though. When it came to deciding which characters would be playable in multiplayer, obviously Luigi was a no-brainer. But another character that was heavily considered was Peach, which I feel like would have made the game's story and premise a lot more interesting than it ended up being. Unfortunately, Peach was ultimately scrapped as a playable character, because Miyamoto thought that animating the way that her dress would move would be too complicated for some reason. I guess they got that one figured out with Mario Wonder, though. In the end, Peach was replaced with the iconic yellow and blue Toad we all know and love, but it would have been super cool to see her playable. And at E3 2009, the game was finally revealed to the public, with this weird video, and a multiplayer demonstration showing off the simultaneous multiplayer. Upon starting the game, you're greeted with the classic 2D Mario opening cutscene formula. However, this time it's Peach's birthday party, and they're pushing a giant cake in, with some suspicious decorations on it that of course turned out to be Bowser Jr., but also the Koopalings, making their first 2D Mario debut since Super Mario World. Very quickly they capture Peach, somehow in the cake, and fly off in an airship, with Mario, Luigi, and the Toads running after them. While back at the castle, some Toads load up a cannon with boxes of the two new power-ups in this game, the Propeller Mushroom and the Penguin Suit, and shoot them into the sky, littering the Mushroom Kingdom with them to help Mario and friends on their journey. This opening is obviously nothing special, but the reintroduction of the Koopalings after them being absent from the series for so long was really cool at the time. But, wasn't when they returned to serve the exact same purpose in all three New Soup games after this. Heading into the first level though, apart from it being absolutely iconic, it's also where we see the proper introduction of the Propeller Mushroom, which is to date probably my favorite 2D Mario power-up. Well, that or the Cape Feather. This power-up has some great uses all throughout the game, and is just simply a lot of fun to mess around with. And right after being introduced to the Propeller Mushroom, in the very next level, 1-2, you're also introduced to the Ice Flower, which technically isn't a new power-up, as it appeared in both Mario & Luigi Partners in Time and Super Mario Galaxy before this. But it's still a really cool power-up, and it is its first appearance in a 2D Mario game. A power-up like this I feel was a long time coming for 2D Mario. I love being able to pick up and toss frozen enemies to knock out a bunch of other ones. It's super satisfying, and makes for some really cool ways to be able to get 1-ups. Also, it finally allows you to be able to kill dry bones. What's funny about the Ice Flower though, is that it practically becomes irrelevant as soon as you start seeing the third and final new power-up, the Penguin Suit, appear in levels. The Penguin Suit is literally just an upgrade on the Ice Flower in every way possible. First off, you can of course shoot ice balls, the only thing the Ice Flower can do, but you can also slide super fast on ice and swim incredibly quick underwater. I don't really know why Nintendo decided to do this, but I guess it does make sense considering the fact that you don't start seeing the Penguin Suit until much later in the game in World 3. Speaking of worlds though, one of the biggest criticisms New Super Mario Bros. Wii gets is that it copies and rehashes the exact same world themes from New Super Mario Bros. DS. Almost in the exact same order too. Whereas in New Super Mario Bros. DS, these world themes were relatively new, and in the order they were in felt very different from all the other 2D Marios except maybe Mario 3. Seeing them all reused in Wii, a game that came out only 3 years after DS, was really disappointing for a lot of people. The worlds in this game aren't all bad though. Their design and general layout are a lot more interesting than DS's. As while all that game's worlds were quite literally straight lines with levels and castles dotted around, Wii's have a much bigger scale, and apart from World 1, aren't just straight lines. World 2, for example, has multiple different paths to take, has you going up instead of right, and at the end has you traverse through quicksand, trying to avoid running into an enemy level. And World 6, probably my favorite world design-wise, really takes advantage of its mountain theme, having you actually scale up it, with 2 different paths you can take, the normal path, or the secret path that takes you right to the castle. What I love about World 6 though, is that once you beat it, you are quite literally in the clouds, which makes the transition to World 7, the Cloud World, incredibly seamless. The transition between World 6 and 7 isn't the only good example of this though. New Super Mario Bros. Wii actually does a pretty good job at making the next world you visit feel like a seamless shift from the last. Well, sometimes. I mean, I've always adored the transition from World 4 to 5. The world starts off entirely beach themed, but as you near the end, you start to see a forest in the background. And eventually at the end, you run into that forest and end up in World 5, the forest world, even retaining the same direction Mario was running. It's such a minor detail, but it always stuck with me as a kid. I love when Mario games do this. But the bigger scale of these worlds as opposed to DS's and the seamless transition some of them have aren't the only good things about them. They are also filled with secrets. Of course you have the cannons returning from DS which allow you to skip entire worlds and are a great incentive towards speedrunning, But you also have secret exits in levels that offer you quicker alternate paths to the castles, like the one I mentioned in World 6, which allows an alternate way to scale the mountain. My favorite example of this, though, has to be in World 7, where you have an entire secret path stemming from a secret exit in the mini castle that even houses its own level, that once beaten not only gives you a fast way to the end of the world castle, but also lets you get into the castle through a secret back way, allowing you to skip the entire level and get straight to the boss, which I always thought was so clever. All in all though, while Wii does reuse the same world themes from DS, it does so in a much better way than that game ever did, giving them a bigger scale and actually making each world feel different apart from their color palette. Enough about worlds though. I think it's time we get into the actual levels themselves. One of the biggest issues Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto had with New Super DS was that he thought the game had been too easy. So with this game, he had a goal in mind of stepping things up a notch and making things a little more difficult for players. And combining that with the absolute chaos of 4-player co-op, beating this game on your own or with friends is pretty hard, especially if you're going for 100%. That's not to say the levels in this game aren't good though. No. Very far from it. New Super Mario Bros. Wii has some absolutely incredible stages, and I just wanted to take this time to highlight some of my favorites. Starting off with 2-4. The main gimmick of this stage is the wind, and this wind at times can be your best friend, but also your worst enemy. The level also provides you with the propeller mushroom at the very beginning, and absolutely zooming through the air with the propeller mushroom combined with the wind is an absolute blast. To avoid being affected by this fast wind, you have to crouch down, and if you're playing multiplayer, it can be incredibly hard to orchestrate this, and most of the time results in absolute chaos. This level is also home to a really clever secret exit that I actually found by mistake when I was younger. Overall, 2-4 is a blast every time I replay this game. Another stage I really enjoy, and actually completely forgot about until I replayed this game for this video, is 6-3. If you watched my new Super Mario Bros. DS video I posted a while back, you might remember me bringing up how I really enjoyed the sewer theme stage in that game, and wished Nintendo would bring that theme back in a 2D Mario game. Well, turns out that they did, and I had just completely forgotten about it. And while I still enjoy DS's rendition of the sewer theme more, Wii's version is still really good. This level is full of secrets and different paths, and I really love that. Its more open design makes it feel a lot different than DS's, but still feels like you're exploring the Mushroom Kingdom's sewer system, and are actually inside a maze of giant pipes. Moving on though, the last stage I wanted to talk about is 3-4. What's really cool about this level is that you literally have to play through it more than once, with the second playthrough of it being a lot different. You see, when you first play this level, it seems like a relatively normal snowy ice level. But all around the stage there are outlines of what should be paths of blocks you can walk on, very reminiscent of the same square outlines you see all over Super Mario World. And similar to that game, you actually have to unlock and press a giant block switch and activate these blocks, to be able to go back into level and find the secret real exit, allowing you to progress. I find this cool because you just don't see it again in the game. This is something that would have become incredibly boring and repetitive if you had to do it multiple times throughout your journey, but the one-off use of this idea makes it really stand out to me. Overall, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is full of a bunch of really creative levels. I wouldn't say this game's level selection even comes close to my favorite of a 2D Mario, but that's not to say they aren't still really good. It is a real shame though that this game is home to 5-4, which I'm convinced was made by evil wizards who broke into Nintendo after hours and really love ruining people's day. I mean, who even designs a level this awful, this horrendous, this diabolical? It really is a testament to how evil the human mind can be. Star coins. Returning from DS, they actually are a lot more useful here. You still spend them like in DS, but in a much different way. Now instead of spending them to unlock Toad Houses for power-ups, you can actually go inside Peach's Castle in World 1 and spend them on hint movies. These hint movies range from cool tech from Nintendo employees, ways to get infinite 1-ups, to even the location of some secret exits, which I will admit does take away from finding them yourself. But hey, this game launched around the same time when YouTube and online tutorials were becoming pretty popular, so baking stuff like this into the game is a really cool way to keep players engaged. There are a total of 65 of these hint movies, adding up to just around over an hour of video content you can watch. The hint movie that I distinctly remember thinking was absolutely insane though, was the Super Skills hint movie for 1-3. This video sees 3 people go through the entirety of 1-3, while throwing around and carrying a 4th player who doesn't touch the controller at all, having them get a bunch of 1-ups and even collect 2 of the star coins. The amount of coordination here was crazy, and I always really wanted to try and recreate this with friends when I was younger, although we never got far at all. But the hint movies aren't the only use star coins have in this game. When you collect all the star coins in any one of the 8 main worlds, you'll be congratulated with a pop-up, but that's about it. Once you've beaten the game, however, you unlock a secret 9th world. This 9th world has 8 levels in it, and in order to unlock each of the 8 levels, you have to collect all the star coins in each of the main worlds. For example, to unlock the first level, you have to have collected all the star coins in World 1, and so on and so on. The levels here in World 9 are easily the hardest in the entire game. And I definitely think Miyamoto had a hand in creating these levels, because they are much harder than anything we saw on DS. Speaking of DS though, one of its biggest strengths was its unique bosses at the end of every world. Sure, every mid-castle had a battle against Bowser Jr. that got harder and harder over time and eventually got a little boring, but each end of the world castle would have something completely unique for you to face off against. You had a giant Goomba, a mole in a tank, and even a Lakitu in a thundercloud. These bosses were incredible, and always kept you wondering what was at the end of each world. With this game, however, we see the return of the Koopalings, making their first appearance since Super Mario World, and replacing the bosses we saw on DS. Unlike DS, however, they don't only appear at the end of a world. They also are the bosses of each mid-castle in a world, with your first fight with them in the mid-castles being a much easier fight than your final one with them in a main castle. Alongside the Koopalings, Bowser Jr. also returns as a boss, being one that you fight 3 times throughout your journey. The reason for your fights with him is actually really funny. You see, after defeating one of the Koopalings, sometimes Bowser Jr.'s airship leaves without him, and you're able to board the airship with him when it comes to pick him up. These airship levels are amazing. They had been sorely missed since their last appearance in Super Mario Bros. 3, and their level design has seen a definite improvement. They not only are relatively difficult, but also are just plain fun to play. That iconic airship music is so good. Returning to the Koopalings, their fights are pretty good honestly. Each one apart from Larry in World 1 has their own gimmick and makes their fights blend in a lot less than they did in World and 3. Roy uses pipes to hide in, and when he drops down he can stun you if you're not careful. Lemmy uses giant balls to try and knock you off while he hides atop his even bigger ball. Wendy completely submerges you underwater at points. Iggy has a giant chain chomp. It's really cool to see these characters' fights be actually interesting, rather than just simply jumping on their heads 3 times or trying to knock them into lava. Before I talk about Bowser though, one of the things I really want to touch on is why I think this game is remembered as well as it is. Apart from it being on the Wii, a really accessible console, this game's renowned reputation in the Mario fanbase is something that's always puzzled me. And not for the reasons you might think. I am one of the thousands, hell, maybe even millions of people who have extreme nostalgia for this game. It was my first introduction to Mario, and right next to Pokemon Red, one of the very first video games I ever truly played. And that in and of itself would make this a very special game to a lot of people. But then I started thinking, one of the biggest things this game and all of the new soups that came after to criticize for is their unoriginality. These games constantly reuse tons of ideas, themes, and music from previous Mario games, and to longtime fans can really make playing through them a boring experience. New Super Mario Bros. Wii isn't exempt from this too. The game reuses tons of music from DS, albeit remixing them, reuses all its world themes, even some of its level themes, doesn't do anything interesting with its story, and its main bosses, the Koopalings, have appeared in both Mario 3 and World serving the exact same purpose. But when you look at this game through the perspective of someone who's never properly played a 2D Mario game before, this game looks absolutely amazing. It has over 70 unique levels, 9 worlds, hours of playtime, is extremely polished and beginner friendly, and even has a 4-player co-op you can play with friends or family. A lot of the ideas reused in this game were millions of people's first introduction to them. Their first introduction to these world themes, bosses, hell, maybe even characters. And when they're all here in this nice polished package, of course it's going to be remembered fondly. To an uneducated eye, this looks like an amazing game. and is why I and a lot of people feel so strongly about it. It was quite literally the perfect introduction to Mario, combining its best ideas and characters into an easily digestible package. And after making your way slowly through all 8 worlds, defeating all the Koopalings and even Bowser Jr., you're met with the final level of the main campaign, Bowser's Castle. I've always really adored the look of this castle, the grand design of it, and the fact that your path just ends right here, and the only place to go is inside that castle. And the fact that throughout the entire game, this will be the first time you see Bowser. I remember being so excited about this when I first made it here when I was about 6 or 7 years old. The final level itself is honestly really cool. The first half is relatively normal for what you'd expect in a fiery castle level, but the second half sees you very carefully trying to stay above the slowly cascading lava, on these bone platforms that fall if you stand on them too long. I'm never really a huge fan of auto-scrollers, but here it definitely works. The idea that you're slowly delving deeper and deeper into the depths of Bowser's Castle is super cool. And the way the background behind you slowly changes from basic castle background to these rocky walls with what looks to be ancient symbols on them really adds to the atmosphere. Finally, as you make your way down this pipe, the music suddenly changes to this distant drum beating sound as you stand right outside the door to Bowser's lair. The vibes here are amazing, and I remember 7-year-old me being so hyped just standing at these doors. I actually went to Super Nintendo World for the first time recently, and in the line for the Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge ride, they have a replica of this door. And walking through it was such a cool experience that brought me right back to when I was a kid standing outside this door. Once you finally go through the door, you have to quickly make your way down this long and ominous hallway, as fireballs from what is presumably Bowser head your way, before you're finally met with the King of the Koopas himself. I absolutely love the way Bowser is portrayed in this final fight. He feels so different from what we usually see from him. He's extremely primal in a way, and that makes this first and subsequently final encounter with him so cool. The first phase of this fight is incredibly easy. You just run under him when he jumps and boom, you win. That is until the thing that seems to be Peach in the cage turns out to be Kamek, as they fly around and drop some magic. And, well... this second phase is insanely cool. You know how I just talked about Bowser being primal in this game? Well, here they take it up to 11, and makes for the absolute coolest and best final boss in any 2D Mario game, period. The way he literally jumps and aggressively claws his way towards you while shooting fireballs is to this day one of the craziest ways Bowser has acted. This whole final phase is incredibly action-packed, and makes finally making your way to that big glowing button and pressing it a huge sigh of relief, bringing an insane end to a very special game. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is one of the most iconic video games on the Wii. Hell, one of the most iconic Mario games. And over the years, it's gained quite the reputation as one of, if not the best 2D Mario game ever made. This is a game that millions grew up with. This was tons of people's first introduction to Mario, and maybe even video games as a whole. Its up to 4-player multiplayer has given so many friends and family amazing memories. Even if at the time it seemed like those 43 times you threw each other in the lava or stole each other's power-ups ruined those relationships. The level design cemented to tons how levels in Mario games work. And the star coins with their many rewards was a lot of completionists' first 100%ed game. And quite possibly the reason they learned they love 100%ing games so much. The secret exits and cannons also marked a lot of speedrunners' first speed game, and could be the reason they got into speedrunning in the first place. And the music. any one of the tens of songs from this game's joy-filled soundtrack can instantly bring someone back to their first experience with the game, whether it be when they were 4 years old or 40 years old. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is a special game and one that I hold very close to my heart. And when I went back to play it again for this video, I was really excited, but also a little nervous to see if the game held up just as well as I thought it did when I completed it 5 times as a kid. And to my delight, it honestly did. I mean, sure, this game has its fair share of problems, like its reusing issue and the raft level in World 5, but that will never take away from the fact that it's a fun game. And one that even now, almost 15 years since it came out, is still one I would play start to finish with a group of friends, or even just by myself and have a blast. So, to answer the question posed at the very beginning of this video, is New Super Mario Bros. Wii still good? Of course it is! I guess deep down, I just really wanted an excuse to relive my childhood. Released on November 19th, 2006 here in North America, Wii Sports was, as stated before, not only a launch title for the Wii, meaning it released the same day the console did, but was also a pack-in title that everyone got. Funnily enough though, Wii Sports was actually never meant to be a pack-in title in the first place. Although he wasn't directly involved with the game's development, Nintendo legend Shigeru Miyamoto actively fought against the idea of having the game come packaged with the console, as he firmly believed that Nintendo shouldn't just give away games for free, and instead suggested that Wii Sports be sold separately. And whether it be due to how notable Miyamoto was at Nintendo, or just that he honestly agreed with his idea, President of Nintendo of Japan at the time, Satoru Iwata, made the decision to not package Wii Sports in with the Wii. And upon hearing about this, Nintendo of America president at the time, Reggie Fils-Aimé, was not happy and fought against Miyamoto and Iwata for months leading up to the console's launch, before Iwata finally gave in and allowed the game to be bundled with the system, much to the dismay of Miyamoto, who is reported to have been visibly unhappy at the meeting where Iwata caved in. Upon opening the game, you're greeted by one of the most iconic video game opening themes ever, and have the option between 5 sports. Tennis, baseball, bowling, golf, and boxing, as well as a training and a fitness mode. But before getting into the actual sports themselves, I think it's important to talk about the heart and soul of this game, the Miis. The Miis are characters that almost everybody is familiar with nowadays, but back at the launch of the Wii, not only was Wii Sports the very first game to utilize the Miis, but it was the only game to utilize them for a few weeks after the console launched. At release, the Miis were actually met with a lot of praise, with reviewers calling them amusing and saying that they added to the experience. And looking back at the use of Miis in this game now, I would totally have to agree. I remember my first time playing Wii Sports, and just how cool I thought it was that I could make a Mii of myself, or, this, and be able to play as them throughout all the sports. And even spot other Miis I had saved on my Wii in the background of some of the sports, cheering me on while I bowl or catching balls for me in baseball. Wii Sports' use of the Miis is relatively simple, but that's perfectly fine. It fits in with their simple designs. Heading into the actual sports themselves though, the first one we have here is tennis. In tennis, you have the option between playing a single game, a best of 3, or a best of 5. Along with that, you also get to choose if you'll play against a CPU Mii or an actual person if you're playing with friends. In multiplayer, this assigns the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th player to one of these spots, but in single player, it just assigns you again, meaning that if you really wanted to, you could control all 4 players on the field and do this. The gameplay of tennis is easily the most simple of all the 5 sports here. You just swing the Wii remote to return the ball and try to make it so your opponent won't be able to return it back to you. And although its gameplay may be the simplest, there is actually some depth to the controls here. and you can actually control where the ball will go after you swing. But rather than being dependent on how fast you swing in an attempt to not have this happen,
all I do is throw that ball up in the air, and when oh, jeez.
Controlling what direction the ball will go after you swing is actually dependent on your timing, and how high or low the ball will bounce is based off the angle at which you swing your Wii Remote. I really appreciate this subtle level of depth because it's not something that's overtly obvious at first, and is not something a casual player or any player that's playing for the first time will notice. It's something you pick up on over time and eventually master, and that feeling of finally understanding it is so satisfying. And I mean, actually understanding the depth of the controls here is genuinely useful. As with each match you win against a CPU, your skill rating will go up and you'll progressively be facing harder and harder opponents, with the stadium you're playing in getting more and more spectators as you climb the ranks. Not only is this skill system a great way to keep players coming back, with the goal of reaching the pro rank and improving at the sport, it also does an amazing job at visually showing your progress. You're getting better at the sport, so more and more Mii spectators actually want to watch your matches. Overall, tennis is handled great in this game, and due to how simple the controls are, even with the subtle depth they have, it still holds up surprisingly well today, and I don't have any complaints. On to baseball. This one was definitely up there as one of my favorites in the entire Wii Sports series when I was younger. Something about physically swinging the bat with the Wii Remote was always so fun to me. The gameplay of this sport is a little more involved than tennis, but is overall still really simple, which is a pattern you'll see across almost all the sports in this game, as they were obviously designed first and foremost to be simple. Probably the most charming aspect of this sport is that you don't only play as your selected Mii here. Rather, you have a full team of Miis that are either taken from your Mii Maker if you have any, or just stock Miis Nintendo created. Seeing my Peter Griffin Mii catch a ball for me or step up to bat is always funny. The skill ranking system is back here, but I honestly have never really felt inclined to grind this sport. Sure, I love playing it every once in a while, but playing more than a few rounds at a time always has me feeling really bored. And I think it's largely due to the pitching. When you're pitching, you're literally just shaking the Wii Remote and that's it. There are specific throws you can do by holding certain buttons while you throw to try and trick the person batting, like throwing a splitter or curveball, but this is barely anything. I would say they could have improved this by letting you point with the Wii Remote where you wanted to throw the ball, but this wouldn't work at all in multiplayer and would probably be incredibly clunky. Overall, baseball is a pretty mixed bag for me. I used to love it when I was younger, but going back to it now, while it still holds up really well in terms of the batting and the charm from your different Miis being on your team, the pitching just sucks. Next up though, we have easily the most iconic sport in the entire Wii Sports series, bowling. And wow! Even after over 16 years and multiple renditions of this sport and every single Wii Sports game to follow that try to improve it, the bowling here still holds up remarkably well. The controls are so simple with you just having to throw the ball, yet the way you can position yourself at an angle or curve the ball just make it so fun to try and find that sweet spot where you're constantly getting strikes. And once you do find that sweet spot, it's so addicting to keep trying to get the highest score you can so one day you can maybe achieve that perfect game. There is so much charm present here, from the people in the alley audibly cheering good spare or great strikes when you get all the pins down, or the Miis behind you jumping and spinning around when you accidentally throw the ball backwards. I really expected not to enjoy this sport as much as I did when I was younger, especially with how good the controls are in the Switch Sports version of bowling. But I was so happy to absolutely love returning back to this version of the sport. And out of all the sports here, this one is easily the most fun to grind for pro in due to how addicting it can get. And once you do eventually achieve the pro ranking, you get this cool shiny ball that shows off your skill to your friends or family. Just this sport alone does an incredible job at showing off what the Wii Remote can do, and I will always love it for that. Moving on from bowling though, we have golf. This is one that I barely played back in the day. I always found it boring because I was incredibly impatient and never really understood the wind mechanic, but playing it now, it's actually pretty decent. I love trying to aim my shots with the speed and direction of the wind in mind, and it's especially satisfying when the ball actually goes where you predicted the wind would take it. Controls wise though, this is where the sport starts to falter a bit. A lot of the time, you think you swung your club at a moderate speed, but then your input gets misregistered and you end up way too far away from where you wanted to be. This problem is especially evident in the putting, where you have to be extremely careful and precise as to not completely mess up what you're planning. Seriously, there are times when you'll just be trying to lightly tap the ball into the hole, but you accidentally shake a tiny bit, and this happens. A lot of the problems I have with golf here though were solved in Resort, with the Wii Motion Plus making swinging a lot less annoying, but it's still a big issue here. The courses here on the other hand are great. I absolutely love how all 9 of them are 3D recreations of the courses from Golf on the NES. It's such a cool little touch. In the end though, it's hard to say I love golf in this game, as while there are some aspects of it that I like, the inconsistency in the controls can be really annoying at times. Last up for the sports we have boxing, and this one is easily the most complex of the 5. Boxing takes advantage of the nunchuck and has you swinging both it and the Wii remote in order to throw punches at your opponents. I've always loved how involved boxing is when compared to all the other sports. There is no other sport in any of the Wii Sports games, apart from maybe sword fighting, that gets me as involved and enthusiastic as boxing does. The only real complaint I have here is sometimes the Wii remote's motion detection can get a bit off, but it surprisingly rarely happens considering how intense this sport is. I really like how much depth there is to the controls here as well. You can perform different types of punches by holding and swinging the Wii remote and nunchuck at different angles, and you can even block attacks if you hold them together. The most vital part of the controls here though, and the thing that will get you beating almost any opponent you go up against, is dodging. If you dodge at the perfect time, everything will slow down and you'll have an opportunity to counter and strike your opponent back really hard. Pulling this off is so satisfying. The absolute best part of this sport though has to be the skill rating system. You see, as I mentioned before when talking about tennis, as you win more and more matches, you start facing increasingly more difficult opponents with more me showing up in the audience. And in boxing, this is taken to its absolute limit. Climbing the ranks in this sport is incredibly fun. It feels like you're fighting to the top, Punch-Out style, and I absolutely love that. I love the bigger audience that shows up. I love how you have to put into practice dodging and countering. And I especially love the final boss of this sport, Matt. Matt is easily one of the most difficult CPUs in the entire game, and I was only able to finally beat him after mastering the dodging and countering mechanic. And it felt so satisfying to do so. I love how iconic Matt has become. He is such a great send-off to boxing, and I was so happy to see him return in Resort and Switch Sports. Overall, boxing is incredible. It's so involved, and that grind to the top will never not be a joy. But while almost all the sports in this game are pretty good and hold up surprisingly well today, one of the biggest critiques Wii Sports got at release was its graphics. As a launch title, hell, as a pack-in title for the system, people were expecting this game to show off what the Wii could do and how much of an improvement it was over the GameCube. But instead of getting the glorious next-gen graphics they were expecting, players got this. Sure, the game isn't ugly per se, but it's also not pretty either. It's just kind of basic. Looking back at this now, being so used to how Wii Sports looks, this doesn't bother me all that much. But I can absolutely understand how some were disappointed in these visuals, especially since it was almost everyone's first experience with the console, being a pack-in and all. Honestly though, this graphical style makes sense. Wii Sports at its core is a simple game, so it kind of makes sense for its visuals to be simple as well. I think the actual problem with these graphics over time though, isn't Wii Sports. It's that every game after Wii Sports that was centered around Mii's used this same simple cartoony style, and it eventually became bland and boring. Overall though, the graphics aren't as big an issue as many play them up to be. Sure, at release they were underwhelming, but they make sense. A simple game like Wii Sports doesn't need extravagant graphics, and the only reason people may not like the style today is because it got overused by games that came after it. Graphics aside though, the last major thing I want to talk about in this video is the training mode. The training mode gives you 3 unique modes per sport that are all centered around improving you at a particular aspect of the sport. For example, tennis has one all about returning balls, baseball has one about hitting the ball in a specific direction, bowling has one about curving effectively, and golf has one about landing on the green and getting as close to the hole as you can. I really appreciate that these modes were included. These modes are where I learned about a lot of the subtle little tricks you can do in some of the sports, and I love how seamlessly they teach them to you here. Out of all the training modes though, the boxing ones have always stood out to me. In every single one, you're being trained by Matt in his gym. And not only does this make your final fight with him even cooler, as it's implied by these training modes that he took you under his wing to train you, and you eventually surpassed him in skill by defeating him in the ring, but there's also some actual lore about Matt hidden in the backgrounds of each of the boxing training modes. On the walls, there are newspaper clippings and pictures that depict a younger version of Matt with a full head of hair, who seems to have been a boxing legend that took the world by storm decades ago. But now his popularity seems to have faded away as he's aged. But once he takes you under his wing and realizes your potential, he returns to the ring to fight you and is ultimately defeated, bringing an end to his story. Having a small story, even as simple as this, is such a cool detail. It's just something that gives the character of Matt life and makes you theorize about him, like I just did. The training modes here are great, but the boxing ones shine above the rest due to the inclusion of Matt and his little story that's told on the walls. Wii Sports is one of the most iconic video games of all time. It's a game that was made to show off the power of the Wii Remote, but eventually ended up becoming the most popular game on the system. I've revisited this game countless times over my life, and every single time I've come out of it differently. Sometimes I come out loving it, sometimes I come out thinking it was alright, and sometimes I just come out bored. But for this video, I really wanted to fully revisit the game and experience everything extensively to truly see if it holds up today. And I was pleasantly surprised with just how well the controls and just some of the sports in general held up. Sure, I may have my issues with the controls in golf and the pitching in baseball that are incredibly valid issues, but the fact sports like bowling, boxing, and tennis still hold up as well as they do today over 16 years later is just a testament to how timeless this game is. Wii Sports is a game that will always still be fun, even if there are more streamlined and well-designed ways to revisit these sports. The charm here is one of the biggest things that's kept me coming back to this game over the years. And whether it be the silly me's you can put in the game, the charming animations they have, or the subtle lore a character like Matt has, Wii Sports will never become obsolete because of this. So to finally answer the question posed at the very beginning of this video, is Wii Sports actually good? It absolutely is!
You earned a silver medal.
Wii Sports was a launch title for the Wii intended to show off the system's new motion controls with a small collection of sports that just about anyone could understand, and really helped people learn how to properly use the Wii Remote to its full extent. However, one complaint Nintendo kept receiving about the Wii Remote from Wii owners and even companies developing motion control based games for the Wii was that the remote was not nearly as accurate at detecting motion than it needed to be. In response to this, Nintendo created an add-on accessory for the remote called Wii Motion Plus, which could easily be plugged into the port on the bottom of the remote that would usually connect a nunchuck. Thankfully though, the Wii Motion Plus accessory came with a nunchuck port on the bottom, so one could still be connected to the remote. But just like the original Wii Remote, Nintendo needed a way to properly show off the new accessory's refined motion sensing abilities. Their solution? Fuck it, just do Wii Sports again. Wii Sports Resort, released on June 25th, 2009, was, as stated before, a sequel to the original Wii Sports intended to show off the Wii Motion Plus's new sensing abilities. Now with almost triple the amount of sports of the original and so many different sub-modes to these sports, Wii Sports is undoubtedly one of the greatest sequels of all time. It takes pretty much everything that made the original so much fun and fully fleshes it out into something that feels less like a tech demo and more like an actual game. And that's not to say the original Wii Sports is bad in any way. Its simplicity is one of the reasons I love it so much, and I've gone as far to make an entire video dedicated to that you can watch on my channel. But Wii Sports Resort is different, not even just in a gameplay way. I mean, look at the presentation of this game. Instead of opening up the game and being greeted to a menu asking what sports you want to play, Resort opens up with you jumping out of a fucking plane, skydiving down to this beautiful island with a giant volcano on one of its edges. Just in the first minute of this game alone, you can already tell how much of an improvement this game is over the original. And one of the biggest reasons for that is Woohoo Island. This is one of the coolest places Nintendo has ever designed. I mean, it has so many cool locations and secret areas and is what connects everything together in this game. In almost every single sport that takes place outdoors, you can look in the distance and see the location of another one. I love this because it makes exploring the island in air sports or riding your bike around the island and cycling so much more fun. You get to see the court where you play basketball, the stadium where you sword fight, the beach where you play frisbee with the dog. Making everything connected like this was absolutely genius and can really help immerse the player in the world of the island. I used to fly around for hours in air sports trying to find new areas on the island or trying to fly in and out of the volcano without hitting anything. It was so much fun. The Miis also feel right at home here as well. The bright and vibrant art style of this game fit perfectly with the Mii's simple design and make the island really feel alive with its active population of little Miis running around or cheering you on in the background of the different sports. Woohoo Island is just fun. There's not really anything else I could say to better describe it. But I mean, I've already praised this game so much without even going into detail about the actual gameplay of the sports and how much better the motion controls feel in this game with the Wii Motion Plus. So a better sport to start off with than swordplay. Probably the most iconic sport in the entire game and definitely the one I put the most time into. Swordplay features 3 different modes: Duel, Speed Slice, and Showdown. Duel sees you facing off in a 1v1 sword fight against a variety of different opponents based on your skill level. The goal of this game is to knock your opponent into the water using precise swings and blocks now possible with the Wii Motion Plus. Or you can just fucking waggle the remote around until you win. It usually works in the lower skill levels. However, once you start fighting more difficult opponents, the waggle strategy becomes less and less effective, forcing the player to be more precise with their swings. This mode is a ton of fun and even sees the return of Matt as the final opponent you have to defeat in order to become the champion. Speed Slice is a little less intense than Duel and involves slicing different objects in the correct direction faster than your opponent. It's a great way to train yourself at reaction time for the other swordplay modes and is a lot of fun with friends. Also, Matt is in this mode too and is just the one throwing objects in the air. I guess Matt really loves swordplay. Showdown is my personal favorite of the bunch, and sees the player progressing down a path defeating hordes of enemies that can usually be defeated with one sword swing, with rare more difficult ones taking 2 hits and being more accurate with their swings. You have to avoid getting hit more than 3 times in this game mode or else you'll fail the stage and have to start all over. Every stage ends with a final boss that takes 3 hits to defeat but is really good at blocking your attacks and catching you off guard. Just like Duel, the last level of Showdown features a battle against Matt that is ridiculously hard, but a lot of fun to try and beat. I can't stress enough how fun just destroying all the hordes of enemies in this mode is, especially all across the different locations of the island. Overall, swordplay is amazing. Each of the modes here feel really unique, and the Wii Motion Plus is really responsive to precise swings and blocks, making for a sport I will always have a blast going back to. The multiplayer in this mode is so much fun as well. I remember playing this game for the first time at my friend's house, and the amount of fun we had just waggling the Wii remote around to see who would win first. Another one of the sports in this game that makes really good use of the motion controls is table tennis. This sport is very similar to regular tennis from the original Wii Sports, however this time at a much smaller scale with way more accurate controls. One of the biggest issues I had with the original Wii Sports tennis was that it didn't matter how hard you hit the ball, it still would travel back at the same speed. This issue was resolved in table tennis and adds a lot more strategy to the game while not overcomplicating it. This sport features 2 modes, Match and Return Challenge. Both of these modes are just like as they sound. Match sees you facing off against a variety of opponents based on your skill level with a final champion to beat, although this time it is not Matt. Very unfortunate. While Return Challenge sees you, well, returning shots, with each shot you return netting you 1 point. Once you return enough shots, cans will start appearing on the table, and if you hit them with the ball, you get an extra 3 points along with the 1 point you get for returning the ball. I never really played Return Challenge that much because I found it pretty boring, but I loved playing the match mode against my friends or even against the CPUs. I love how Nintendo decided to bring back tennis in this game in an entirely new way. It really fits the vibe of Woohoo Island and is designed incredibly well and is one of the more underrated sports in this game. And while on the topic of underrated sports, we have the incredibly fun wakeboarding sport. This sport involves riding off the waves left behind a speedboat and trying to get as high in the air as you can while also performing cool tricks and landing the board perfectly to generate more speed. I love wakeboarding because it feels so nice to get a good momentum going and do a cool chain of tricks and go for a high score. Although sometimes the motion controls do feel a little wonky here and you end up losing all your momentum and speed for something that doesn't really feel like it's your fault. But that doesn't happen too often, and a lot of the time I'm able to recover really easily and get my momentum going again. This sport is one of the more unique sports in this game, and getting a high score in this mode feels incredible. Making its triumphant return from the original Wii Sports is the incredibly popular bowling. In Wii Sports Resort, bowling now has 3 modes. the standard game, 100-pin game, and spin control. Starting off with the standard mode, it's pretty much the exact same as it was in the original Wii Sports, now in a new bowling alley with some pretty visuals. However, gameplay-wise, this mode has changed a lot. The throwing is way more accurate and responsive than it was in the original, and actually feels heavy now. I mean, going from the throwing in the original to how it works in Wii Sports Resort is almost night and day. The improvement is incredible. Curving the ball is now a lot more accurate as well, allowing for more precise shots and overall just feeling so much better. I'd honestly argue that bowling in this game feels better in a lot of ways than it does in Switch Sports, but I could be a little nostalgia blind as I did play Wii Sports Resort a lot. But moving on, a 100-pin game is just like regular bowling, except there's 100 pins. I mean, what did you expect? In the original Wii Sports, there was a mode to play bowling, except every new frame, they would add more and more pins, going up to about 100 pins at the very end. Now, that was fun, but I mean, let's be honest. The only reason we were playing all those other frames was to get to the last one with the most amount of pins. Including a dedicated 100 pins mode in Resort was a great idea, and playing this mode is so incredibly satisfying. But one thing a lot of people used to try to do in this mode, myself included, was try to get a secret strike. What's a secret strike, you ask? Well, this. Yeah. Pulling this off was incredibly difficult, but so satisfying to do. I remember watching countless YouTube tutorials on how to do it when I was younger, and it took me hours to even get it once. I'm sure it would probably be easy now if I really looked for a strategy, but Nintendo including a secret button like this to hit was so cool. And we'll even see something similar to it again when I talk about archery. Spin control is the last of the bowling modes in this game and probably the most difficult. Spin control involves you using different angles and curves in order to avoid barriers that fill up the lane, with each new frame adding more and more obstacles. Perfecting this game, meaning getting a strike every single frame, is nearly impossible and probably the most difficult task in any Wii Sports game. Overall, bowling has had tremendous improvements in this game and really demonstrated how good the Wii motion controls were back in 2009, and I mean even today since the gameplay holds up so incredibly well. Archery. One of the only sports in Resort to use the nunchuck, and probably the best use of it in this game. Archery involves shooting a target in various locations on the island, and going for the highest score possible by hitting as close to the center as you can. The controls can sometimes feel a bit wonky, but when you understand them, you can get pretty good at this game. I never played this one much when I was younger, as I was really bad at it, but going back, I had a ton of fun playing this one. However, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about archery was because of this. How the fuck? I didn't even know these existed until like a year ago. In every single archery level, there's a hidden target, and some of these targets are hidden so well that it just looks like you're taking a shot in the dark when you try to go for some of these. This is such a cool thing to include, and just goes to show how many small little details there are scattered all over Woohoo Island. And while on the topic of small details all over the island, what better sport to talk about than air sports? Well, more specifically, the island flyover mode. Island Flyover sees the player piloting a small plane that you control by rotating the Wii remote in the direction you want to fly. Along with this, you can turn the engine off with B for some reason, and shoot a flare into the air by hitting 1. Being able to explore the island like this is cool enough in and of itself, but the addition of different location points to collect that have little tidbits of information about areas on the island is so awesome. Like for example, you can learn about this mountain monument that the game describes as looking man-made and then ask the question of how the huge rocks got up there, or how the cliffside ruins have ancient writing chiseled into the rock that's too faded to read. These little pieces of lore add so much to the island, and the small descriptions leave it up to the player's imagination to fill in the blanks and create their own idea of Woohoo Island's past and how it came to be. One thing I used to love doing in this flyover mode was flying all the way over to the Gulf Island in the distance and getting to see all the golf courses from high up in the air. It's just so cool how everything's connected and you get to see the island in all its glory in the flyover mode. And since we flew all the way over here to the Gulf Island, what better sport to talk about next than canoeing? Well, I mean, you get to canoe. It's pretty cool. The motion controls are all right here. Just a fun little golf. Making its return from the original Wii Sports, just like bowling, now has a bunch of new courses to explore and just overall feels a lot better than in the original, thanks to the Wii Motion Plus. One issue I had with this mode in Wii Sports was how tough putting could be. Sometimes I just wanted to slightly tap the ball forward, and instead it would misregister my swing and add way too much power to it, causing me to miss the hole by a long shot and then have to waste a turn getting the ball back where I wanted it to be. In Resort, this issue is pretty much completely fixed. I almost never feel like I have trouble putting anymore because of how responsive the remote is, and even just this small change makes for a better experience overall. But other than the control differences and new courses, golf is pretty much the same as it was before, just again feeling a lot better. And to me, that is absolutely enough. Although technically not in the golf sport and being a side mode in Frisbee, we have Frisbee Golf, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Golf, but with a Frisbee. This is such a unique and fun side mode to have. I love the idea of combining new sports together to make something new. In order to finish a course in Frisbee Golf, you have to get the Frisbee in the highlighted area around the hole would usually be, and this is a really cool idea. It adds a lot of strategy to the already in-depth Frisbee controls, because instead of having to land in a certain area, the height of the Frisbee is irrelevant and it's just focused on passing through that highlighted circle. I had a lot of fun going back to this mode and think it was overall a great addition. Last up for the sports I want to talk about, we have basketball. Instead of basketball, there are two modes, 3-point contest and pickup game. 3-point contest sees you shooting from 5 different locations on the court that are far enough away from the net to be classified as 3-point shots instead of 2-point shots that you get if you're any closer. The best way to do well in this game is to have a good rhythm, which you can see from the gameplay in the background playing right now that I absolutely do not have. After you shoot each ball, you have to reach to your right for the next, and this can really break the rhythm you have going. I never played this one too much because I was always bad at it, but when I would eventually get a good rhythm going, it felt really good. Pickup game is the one I played a lot of in this sport. It's a 3-on-3 match, and the team who scores the most points in the time frame wins the match. You can play this one against your friends or against the CPUs, with the CPU path having a skill ranking that you can progress through all the way up to the champion team. I used to love playing this mode because I found shooting the ball and trying to deflect the opponent's shots way more fun than 3-point contest gameplay loop, and I love the skill progression system. Basketball makes surprisingly great use of the Wii remote when I really expected it to not, so props to Nintendo for this one. Overall, a really fun sport with my personal favorite mode obviously being pickup game. And that's all for the sports I wanted to talk about. I know I didn't mention every single one, but just know I really enjoy all of them, even if I didn't play some of them that much. There isn't one sport in this game that I feel like doesn't deserve to be in here, which is something I definitely can't say about a game like Nintendo Switch Sports, but that's a video for another day. One really cool thing that Wii Sports Resort introduced was stamps. Stamps aren't required to unlock any secret sports or modes and are completely cosmetic, but are a ton of fun to try and collect. In total, there are 100 stamps, with a lot of them being pretty simple to unlock, like getting a score under par on any course in golf, or getting a score over 200 in bowling. But some of these are extremely difficult, like hitting every single target in archery or defeating Matt in a duel. These stamps add a lot of hours to the game and require you to get so good at the different sports to the point where you're pretty much unbeatable in any of them. Donkey Kong is a classic character. Being Mario's first ever rival in their debut game Donkey Kong in 1981, these characters have a long history with each other. But after the success of the Donkey Kong arcade game, Mario would begin to rise to fame, with Donkey Kong taking a bit of a backseat. And with the release of Super Mario Bros. In 1985, not only did Mario's fame reach new heights, but Donkey Kong was entirely replaced as Mario's rival with the introduction of a new villain, Bowser, the King of the Koopas. And as the years went by, the two characters became more and more separate from each other. Mario was off starring in his big platforming adventures and teaching people how to type. And Donkey Kong was still back starring in those arcade climbing games, facing new foes but not really changing the core gameplay. With the character kind of fading into obscurity in the early 90s, as there hadn't been a game starring him since 1987. It was only till the release of Super Mario Kart in September of 1992 that Mario and the Kong family reunited, with Donkey Kong Jr. of all characters appearing on the roster. With this game, it was pretty much confirmed that Donkey Kong as a character was still alive and well as a part of Mario's cast of characters, just not starring in many games anymore. more so being a side character reserved for spin-offs. Which is why it came as a huge surprise in 1994 when not only did Donkey Kong return in a non-Mario game, he returned in his own platformer, Donkey Kong Country, now rivaling Mario's main genre instead of being the villain of his games. Donkey Kong Country and his two subsequent successors, all on the SNES, were a huge hit. And despite being in the same genre that made Mario so popular, these games were much different and much harder than anything Mario offered. With these games still being renowned today as being some of the most creative platforming on the Super Nintendo. But after the SNES, the Donkey Kong Country series seemed pretty dead, with no new entries in over a decade by the time of the Wii's release. However, that was until the Donkey Kong series shocked everyone again with the announcement and release of Donkey Kong Country Returns in 2010. This is a game that sat at the back of my head for years. I mean, it sounded pretty great, and I always thought the Donkey Kong Country games looked cool, but never really got around to trying it. But with the announcement of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD coming to Switch, I thought I'd finally get around to playing and beating it, and try to finally answer the question that's been on my mind for so long. My name is Mariomikester, and in this video, I'm going to try and answer one simple question. Is Donkey Kong Country Returns actually good? Released here in North America on November 21st, 2010, Donkey Kong Country Returns is the fourth entry in the DKC series, reviving it 13 years later. Development for this game started in early 2008, with Metroid Prime developers Retro Studios being chosen to work on it. The story behind this is pretty interesting too. You see, the original three Donkey Kong Country games weren't actually made in-house by Nintendo. Rather, they were created by British developer Rare, who would eventually go on to create the Banjo-Kazooie series. Rare did a remarkable job with the first three DKC games, creating some of the best graphics and gameplay available on the SNES. And while Nintendo would have loved to have them back for Donkey Kong Country Returns, the ultimate reason for the 13-year gap between DKC 3 and Returns was due to Rare being acquired by Microsoft in 2002, legally preventing them from being able to work with Nintendo again. Without Rare, Nintendo didn't have anyone they could trust to make a mainline Donkey Kong game that lived up to the quality of what Rare could do, which is why the series remained dormant on mainline entries for so long. However, with the amazing reception relatively new Nintendo developer Retro Studios was receiving for their work on Metroid Prime 1 and 2, combined with the fact that Miyamoto totally by chance, according to an Iwata Asks interview, started to become interested in a Donkey Kong Country revival after Retro had shown interest in making a Donkey Kong game for years, a return to the series developed by Retro seemed like a perfect idea. And Nintendo president at the time, Satoru Iwata, was extremely confident in Retro's ability to make a game that lived up to the standards set by Rare. And as development started, the first thing the team did was dedicate their first week of work to playing through all three Donkey Kong Country games on the SNES. In order to refresh their brains, as most of the staff working on this game were fans, but also look at the games through a developmental lens and really see what made the games fun. And when they actually started working on the game, Miyamoto supervised and constantly was checking up on them to see the progress they were making. According to the team, Miyamoto was like their Yoda, being the person they would always go to for advice or wisdom, and the one keeping them on track. The biggest thing Miyamoto had a hand in the development though, was making sure this game had the same spirit and feel of the original Donkey Kong Countries, with Retro being the ones to introduce all the fresh ideas and concepts. And after a development period of just over 2 years, and lots of advice from Yoda Miyamoto, Donkey Kong Country Returns was finally revealed to the public at E3 2010, being one of the biggest announcements at E3 that year. Upon opening the game, you're met with this cutscene of a volcano erupting on Donkey Kong Island. From this eruption, we see the emergence of a new type of species to the Donkey Kong series, the Tikis. The Tikis seem to have been long extinct and buried deep within the volcano, but due to this eruption, they've been awakened, and as we see in the next scene, seem to have some sort of hypnotic power that they use to take control of the animals on the island. They use this power to force the animals to steal Donkey Kong's bananas for some reason. And after noticing this, Diddy Kong runs off after them, while back at the treehouse, Donkey Kong is being cornered by one of the Tikis, as they use their mind-controlling power to try to hypnotize Donkey Kong. However, this doesn't work, and leads to this hilarious scene where you as the player take control of Donkey Kong and swiftly shake the Wii remote in order to absolutely pummel the Tiki and send them flying away. As Donkey Kong jumps out of his treehouse and sets off after Diddy, but also of course the Tikis so he can reclaim his stolen bananas. This opening works. I mean, it's Donkey Kong. I feel like these kind of games work best when their plot is wacky. It's not something to take seriously, but it's still a narrative that gives a reason behind why you're playing the game and why Donkey and Diddy Kong are after the Tikis. Heading into the first level, this stage does a great job at introducing you to Donkey Kong's playstyle. I remember when I first tried this game years back at a friend's house when I was a kid, and absolutely ignoring all the tutorials because I thought my 2D Mario skill would transfer over and I'd know what to do. That, however, is very far from the case. Donkey Kong in this game, and well, all the Donkey Kong Country games before this, play way differently than Mario. A lot of people, even like myself when I was younger, may look at this game and just say, oh, it's like New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but with Donkey Kong. But again, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Donkey Kong has a variety of different moves, and coming from someone whose experience with 2D platformers is mostly reserved to strictly Mario games, it's such a breath of fresh air to see a different playstyle. Alongside Donkey Kong's move pool though, you can also find Diddy Kong barrels all throughout the game's levels. And when you break these barrels, Diddy will join you on your back, offering you 2 extra hit points, but also allowing you to make use of his jetpack and hover in the air for a second. I can't even begin to mention how many times this literal second-long hover has saved me throughout the game. Also, DK has this blow move he can do, and apparently this idea came from none other than Yoda Miyamoto himself, and the team thought he was crazy for it, but in the end made it work. After beating the first level though, you're introduced to the world map. And apart from this world map theme being an absolute banger, the different worlds of this game are great. You of course got the first world you start off in, the jungle, which is about everything you'd expect from a jungle world in a Donkey Kong game. But seeing the ancient structures that cover this world does a really good job at showing the player that the Tikis were actually the original inhabitants of this island, due to the age of these structures, and this is a level of world building I didn't expect to come from a Donkey Kong game. A lot of this world feels like a reimagining of the first DKC game, right down to the amazing remixes of some of the classic themes from those games. And I think that's a great way to introduce new players to what a Donkey Kong Country game is, like by pretty much recreating what it was like to play the first game. And for veteran players, it's not only a nice introduction back to a series they love, but it shows that DKC is in good hands with Retro Studios and that they know what they're doing. It's not until the later worlds we see Retro really start to come out of their comfort zone and begin to introduce a lot of new ideas. Speaking of later worlds though, let's talk about them. After the jungle world, we have the beach world. And the thing I love about this game's different world themes is that a new world doesn't just mean a new background theme and music. It means new enemies, new obstacles, and of course, new gimmicks. With the beach, you're introduced to the crab enemies, and understanding how to defeat them will be invaluable information for when you get to the boss of this world. And as you progress here, you learn that the theme of this world isn't just a beach setting, but also a pirate theme as well, as you start seeing ships appear in levels, and eventually are dodging cannonballs and trying to take them out. 2-5 is probably my favorite level to come out of this world though, as halfway through it, a giant octopus appears in the background destroying a ship. And the goal of the stage changes from just trying to make it through, to trying to make it through while a giant angry octopus starts destroying the land around you, constantly invading your path, with the end of the level culminating in you defeating the octopus. It's so cool. Another world I love is World 4, the Cave World. Having an entire world be themed around being underground is already cool enough to me, but the fact that most of this world is based around minecart-centered levels makes it even better. The minecart levels were some of the most iconic and difficult parts of the original 3 DKC games. And that part about the difficulty still holds true here. The first level of this world, 4-1 Rickety Rails, had me dying over and over again because of how hard it was for me. But finally nailing it down felt so satisfying. The game doesn't hold your hand at all here, and I really like that because it's not something I'm used to with 2D platformers. This world is also home to 4-4 Mole Patrol. This stage is all about the rocket barrel gimmick, which while introduced in DKC 3, really made its debut in this game, as it functions a lot differently here, working more so as a Flappy Bird mechanic that I think works super well with this stage. Seeing that mole train blast through the cave walls and the moles start to fight back is amazing. Stages like this are what separates the DKC games from other 2D platformers. They're not at all afraid to change things up on you, and it leads to almost all the levels in this game feeling unique, and had me going out of my way to buy keys from Cranky Kong's shop to unlock the secret levels. These levels aren't just super creative in their design either. They also allow for a lot of exploration and hold tons of secrets. You see, each level has 4 main collectibles for you to, well, collect. Those being the bananas, the banana coins, the puzzle pieces, and the Kong letters. The bananas are pretty self-explanatory, functioning like how coins and rings do in Mario and Sonic games. And the banana coins act as a currency you can use at Cranky Kong's shop, in order to buy power-ups like being invincible at the beginning of the stage, but also allows you to buy more lives, and of course the keys I mentioned earlier that unlock a secret level in each world. The bananas and banana coins aren't ever hard to find, and aren't really meant to be hunted for. The puzzle pieces and Kong letters, on the other hand, are meant to be hunted. Each level, apart from boss levels, have either 5, 7, or 9 puzzle pieces to find. And by collecting these puzzle pieces, you unlock cool artwork to be able to view in the extras section. And for some reason, collecting these do not at all raise your completion percentage, even though you are rewarded for finding them. The Kong letters, however, do raise your completion percentage, and offer a much different reward than simple artwork. The reward for collecting these is unlocking the key temple stages, which I had no idea about until I started writing this video. These key temple stages are actually really cool though. You see, each world has 1 key temple stage. In order to unlock this secret level, you have to collect all the Kong letters in each level of that world. So for example, collecting every Kong letter in all of the Jungle Worlds levels will open up a path to World 1's key temple stage, Platform Panic. Pretty similar to how World 9 works in New Super Mario Bros. Wii and U, but in my opinion a lot cooler, because you don't have to wait till you beat the game to play these stages. These key temple levels are, as you'd expect, very difficult, but do give a really good incentive towards collecting the Kong letters. Overall, this game has a ton of cool optional collectibles, with the Kong letters obviously being the most important and most well hidden as they help unlock new stages. And even though this was my first time fully playing through and beating this game, one thing I couldn't help but recognize throughout my playthrough was the music. Now, while this game does have its fair share of completely new and unique tracks, most of them are new arrangements of themes from the original 3 DKC games. And for this game, it works so well. The music was a huge part of Donkey Kong Country's legacy, and getting the music right here was a big deal for Nintendo. And at the request of Iwata and Miyamoto, the song's soundtrack was composed to reflect this. You have so many new arrangements of some of the most iconic themes from the original games. And I absolutely loved listening to each new track I heard and seeing if I recognized it. Everything from the main theme to the map theme to even the famous underwater theme all return here, making the title of Donkey Kong Country Returns fit very well when discussing its OST. The only thing that disappointed me was that while the iconic aquatic ambience theme does return, since this game doesn't feature any water levels as Retro and Nintendo decided they wouldn't fit well, the theme only appears on one of the beach stages, and doesn't really fit as well as it could. Other than that though, the music is by far one of my favorite parts of the game, and something that I think should be appreciated a lot more when discussing this entry. But enough about levels and music. I think it's time we get into the bosses of this game. The bosses to me were some of the hardest parts of the game, and from someone whose main source of platforming is reserved almost entirely to Mario, bosses being a struggle in a 2D platformer was a bit of a surprise to me. The first boss you face off against in this game is Mowgli. This guy is a very good beginner boss, but that doesn't mean he's easy. He has 3 phases, with each phase seeing him become more and more aggressive, and turning a darker color. Out of all the bosses, I'd say Mowgli is the easiest, as you'd probably expect, but some of these bosses like Mole Miner Max in World 4 get a little unreasonably difficult in my opinion. I mean, I wholeheartedly welcome the difficulty of this game. It's one of the reasons I wanted to try to beat it so bad. But this fight is just too much. For starters, the fight takes place aboard a bunch of different moving minecarts, so you already know things are about to get crazy. But along with that, you are constantly left on your toes trying to avoid pickaxes being thrown at weird speeds, moles jumping up from under you attacking you, and minecarts suddenly derailing. In this respect, Donkey Kong Country Returns does an amazing job at being a revival of the series. Because while I may not like it, the original DKC games were very well known for their annoyingly difficult bosses. So them keeping to that and not babying it down for new players is pretty cool. At the end of the day though, while some of the bosses were a bit harder than I would like, they're still all really creative fights. And the reason behind the enemies you're fighting being that they're possessed by the Tikis is great. Before I talk about the final boss though, I did quickly want to mention the 3DS port of this game, as its existence just baffles me. In 2013, only 3 years after Donkey Kong Country Returns released on the Wii, Nintendo released Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, an entire port of this game onto the 3DS. Now obviously to make this work, the graphics had to be downscaled quite a bit, but apart from that, it plays almost identically to its Wii counterpart, even featuring some new levels alongside it to entice owners of the Wii game to buy it again. I have no idea why Nintendo decided to port this game to the 3DS 3 years after it came out, but it is kinda funny that with the announcement of the Switch port, it means Donkey Kong Country Returns has been playable on every single Nintendo console since the Wii. Overall, if you're looking for a way to experience this game before the Switch port comes out, or if you don't have access to a Switch, I would highly recommend the 3DS version over the Wii version. That is, if you can deal with the lower frame rate and lower res graphics. And after battling your way around DK Island and up the mountain, you're faced with the final boss of the game, Tiki Tom. A very odd name for a final boss, but it rhymes with Donkey Kong and I think that's funny. Unlike all the other bosses in this game, there's actually somewhat of a level you have to play before you can fight him. Instead of just running up to them like you do in most boss levels, here you have one final rocket barrel level, with this stage seeing you ascend vertically instead of flying horizontally like usual. Not only do you have to move left and right to avoid hitting any obstacles, you also have to know when to slow down and speed up the rocket in order to dodge the moving obstacles. And makes for a really difficult final stretch before you get to face Tiki Tom. And after making it through that gauntlet, you finally get to face them. This final fight sees you avoiding and destroying Tiki Tong's newly created hands, by jumping on them when they leave themselves open for an attack. And thank the Donkey Kong Banana Gods, because yes, this fight isn't as hard as the Mole Minecart one. And while this fight wasn't as hard as a lot of the others in this game, I didn't enjoy it nearly as much. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate this fight, but as a final boss, Tiki Tong didn't really hit that hard. It seemed weird to have Nintendo's overused hand boss gimmick be the final big bad of the game. I feel like they could have done a lot more with this fight, but in the end, it does get the job done. And after struggling through the crazy difficulty of this game, landing that final hit on Tiki Tong and defeating them feels great. The Donkey Kong series is an important one to a lot of people. And its impact is one that would inspire tons of 2D platformers, and right next to Sonic, is proof that Mario isn't the only character that can do 2D platforming right. The original 3 games are classics of the SNES. And when people realized the series may not ever come back after Rare was bought out by Microsoft, it was incredibly disappointing. But thanks to Retro Studios' amazing work on the Metroid Prime games and Nintendo's clear trust in the studio, we were able to see the Donkey Kong Country series return in an amazing way. Donkey Kong Country Returns is a game that's able to stand alongside the original trilogy due to its great level of quality and how it sticks to the original feel of those games, while also introducing tons of new ideas that feel right at home, which is something a lot of revival projects aren't able to do. Everything from the music, the level design, the different worlds really immerse you in the land of this game. Retro Studios wasn't afraid to try new things here with the new and improved rocket barrel gimmick or the silhouette theme stages. And while the final boss didn't exactly hit the mark to end the game on the best note possible, the rest of the content here more than makes up for that. I mean, there's a reason this game wasn't just ported once, but is being ported twice. The amount of passion poured into this game makes it incredibly clear that the Donkey Kong series is in good hands. And with the amazing reception of the sequel to this game, Tropical Freeze, it's clear the future is looking bright for the Donkey Kong series. Well, that is if Nintendo would let Retro make the 8 any new games. But with DK's appearance in the Mario movie and the announcement of the DK Jungle section of Super Nintendo World, I'm sure we'll see more games in the future. So, to finally answer the question posed at the very beginning of this video, is Donkey Kong Country Returns actually good? Absolutely! Now all Nintendo needs to do is add DK Bongo support to the Switch port.